Welcome to the PHLY Sixers Draft Show live at Garage North in Fishtown. The Sixers crew here to break things down as we get things started with the 2024 NBA Draft. We really appreciate everybody joining us here, presented by our good friends from Coors Light, Hofmann Orthopedics, as well as we are getting ready for the Philadelphia 76ers, of course, in the first round, only tonight. Two-day draft for the NBA this year, and round two tomorrow afternoon beginning at 4 p.m. But for us here tonight, a big night with so much going on in the association. It's been very quiet with the Philadelphia 76ers, so a lot to discuss as they have pick number 16 tonight here in the draft, and we have plenty to talk about. And of course, as always, I'm never by myself. I'm always with the crew, and I have to my direct left, Bodner.
I wouldn't watch you do a show by yourself. You did it for years.
You did, and you have seen me do a show by myself. I appreciate it, though. But good to be with you for our first draft together. To my direct right, Rich Hofmann hanging out with us here tonight. For about 3 hours as we get things going. We've had some pretty good shows together where they've done good things. Will they do good things tonight is the question.
They've done some bad things, too.
That's very true.
They've done some things, for sure. But they've always done something, and I think they're going to do something one way or another.
One way or another. And to Rich's right, my far right, with us, as always, Kyle Neubeck. Kyle already cracking open the
Coors Banquet, baby.
And you can get that for $5 here tonight, as well as a $5 Coors Light pounder here for $5. And you can hear and maybe even see behind us. We're packed out in here. It's a pretty good crowd in here. Ready and excited, Kyle, for what they hope happens tonight, which is some good things for the Sixers tonight. Yes.
I mean, that's probably the theme of the show, right? After the last couple of days, really the last week and a half of the Bulls make the Alex Caruso trade with Oklahoma City, takes a big target off the board. Your cousin, your failed tampering, Devon, Mikal Bridges ends up in New York.
He got him out of Brooklyn.
Well, he tampered, but for the wrong team. How about that? And now, OG Anunoby, the next big domino, signs a 5-year, what is it, $212 and a half? $212.5 would have been great. $212.5 million. That would have been a big price to pay for OG. But as we discussed earlier today, guys, kind of what we expected. OG ended up in New York, and that's the reason you commit all those resources to get Mikal, because you feel, hey, we have the team in place for at least the next 2 years that's going to try to go compete for a title.
So another name off the board for the Sixers, and that is OG Anunoby. And Derek, we start with that because as you and Kyle thought that, maybe there's a good chance that Brandon Ingram is the guy that they may target now going forward with Mikal off the board, some other things with Alex Caruso going to Oklahoma City, that maybe Brandon Ingram is the way that they look. I mentioned OG Anunoby. We've all talked about it as a pretty good fallback option should other things not go into place. And we'll get to Paul George a little bit later as the guy that we talk about maybe not falling into place. But the OG Anunoby piece, your thoughts on that, the 5 years, the 212, as Kyle said, they already had the resources to do so. And being able to get Mikal and then come in here and fall back and now convince OG Anunoby where the talk was, he's not all that thrilled. He got what he wanted.
Yeah, well, at the very least, if the Sixers accomplished nothing else, they caused New York to pay probably more than they were comfortable. Hang a banner. That is what the Sixers have done so far. But I mean, look, we were talking about. It's the only banner
they're going to hang in my lifetime. So
when we were talking about him, OG, we were talking about maybe 35 to 40. 42.5 isn't that bad, all things considered. New York obviously then went with the extra year because they had the bird rights and they had to. It always felt like a long shot. I thought once they made the Bridges trade, then OG had to go back. You don't give up 6 first-round picks for OG just to then lose, or for Mikal just to then lose OG. So like I said earlier today, we had an emergency pod on this earlier today, which always is a smart thing to do before you're going to talk for 4 straight hours. But we did an emergency pod, so my thoughts are on there. They had to make it work. And they're going to be hard capped now, probably at the second apron, if they can figure out a way to structure it for that. But it's going to be tough, but they're going to be very good. They're going to be very good.
It does appear, by the way, according to Shams Charania, that the Hawks are locked in to the first pick. Are we going to spoil it before it's broadcasted, or how does this work here? I don't know if we're on a delay.
We will let everybody know that throughout the night, even though we're talking heavy Sixers, we're certainly going to bring you each pick that goes by will bring you who it is. In the event that you're maybe working, you have us on, and you cannot really get to the television to find out who it is. You can't get to social media fast enough. You're here with us. We'll bring you each pick as they go down. So yes, we'll give it to them as it happens. You know, we won't spoil it for the folks out there.
Okay, all right.
We won't spoil it for the folks out there. But Rich, your thoughts? A lot has been happening. We haven't had a chance to sit with you and talk about the Sixers offseason as much. So your thoughts, number one, starting with this one in the OG Anunoby, staying with the Knicks after the Mikal Bridges trade happened.
Well, I think once they made the Mikal trade, you kind of just have to keep OG regardless, because there's no way of replacing him, and there's no way of getting a player of his caliber again. I mean, you're basically trading your next 7 years of drafts. Not every pick, but almost all of them, and your inability to trade afterwards. Yeah, I think they had to do it. And, you know, they did not cheap out here. They did get the, you know, we were wondering, was it going to be 30, 35, 40?
That's where we were.
The last few weeks, I think we all kind of settled in, all right, it's probably going to be 40 million one way or another. The Sixers or somebody else is going to force their hand. And, you know, I'm very curious in how the Knicks handle their finances over the next few years, because I did a little rough math. I was just like, man, how are they going to be able to afford all these guys? This year, they're fine. They got 7-8-man rotation.
It's the beauty of the Jalen Brunson contract, really.
And
Mikal
Mikal Bridges, yeah. They've got
That's
2 years where they should be able to keep that together.
Those are probably the two most team-friendly non-rookie contracts in the league, right? Where somebody signed an extension, but they've just outplayed it, right? They're just more valuable.
Yep.
Now, what happens, though, in, I believe it's next year, Jalen Brunson has a player option on his contract. He could basically double his salary, guys.
Well, we've been already talking about it because the reports out there were that he was going to take a more team-friendly deal on his extension to help out the New York Knicks and their salary situation because of what you're talking about. But who knew that they were going to go and do just that with the Mikal Bridges trade and then ante up for OG Anunoby? They still have the Julius Randle piece of what they need to do. Isaiah Hartenstein is a free agent.
There you go.
So
Pick
with
is
all
in.
of that, you know, they have a big opportunity. So the pick is in at pick number one. Kyle, you are very good at pronouncing this young man's name.
No, I pronounce Salon. You get to pronounce this one.
For the Atlanta Hawks, they go Zachary Risache for the number one overall
Good
pick.
enough.
For a while, we thought it was going to be Sarr, and then things started to change, Kyle. We went to Risache, and he is the number one overall pick for the Atlanta Hawks, and I don't know what they're doing.
So here's what I'll tell you. I have pretty extensive draft notes on most of the guys who will be taken in the first round. My draft notes for this young man are that every comparison I've seen made is Harrison Barnes or Tobias Harris. And that's the guy you're talking about as the number one overall pick to the Atlanta Hawks. That's no disrespect to this. I hope he has a long and prosperous career. Frankly, most guys, if you could tell them I'm going to have Tobias Harris's career in terms of earning potential and longevity,
That's where I was
they
going.
would sign on the dotted line. But if you are hoping for that out of your number one overall pick, perhaps that tells you why people are down on this draft.
What are your thoughts, man?
I like that he went through that entire scouting report and didn't say his name once. That was honestly pretty impressive. I appreciate that.
He, right. But
No, look, I think I'm just going to continue it. I think he's taller than Tobias. He has a quicker trigger than Tobias. He has more defensive versatility than Tobias. I think that's probably a little unfair. But to your point, everyone almost universally agrees that the top 5 of this draft is weak. Once you start getting in the middle portion, it's sort of like a normal draft. But the top 5, there is no clear-cut superstar prospect, and that's a result of that.
let's just go to Flyers in 7 in the chat and calls him Lay Tobias. Lay Tobias.
Le crumble.
As we watch some of the highlights, as the Atlanta Hawks make him the number one overall pick. Washington Wizards, they are number 2 on the clock. But again, the New York Knicks part of it, again, taking Mikal Bridges off the board, taking OG Anunoby off the board for the Sixers to have a right to trade for Bridges, trade for Anunoby, sign him as a free agent on the open market should he have gotten to that place on Sunday. But they still have the Julius Randle contract that they may look to do something there. Isaiah Hartenstein is a free agent. There's been talk about Mitchell Robinson potentially on the move. their rotation is pretty good, and they still have work to do, at least it seems.
Yeah, definitely. One thing, by the way, with this young man from France, thank God this was not the lottery during one of the process years.
Oh, my God.
And that's not to say that the Sixers didn't screw up a lot of those lotteries, but just for our standpoint from the coverage and the build-up, trying to get everybody jazzed up about Harrison Barnes or Leigh Crumbell, that would have been tough stuff.
I mean, this draft to me is similar to the draft where the Sixers began the process, where Nerlens Noel was kind of that top guy. He gets hurt, and then you're choosing from a bunch of bad options.
But we weren't prepared.
But that was not. We didn't go into that draft saying, hey, the Sixers need to get an absolute home run, franchise player type guy here. And they didn't. But, you know, to your point, I'm glad that we got to cover the Joel Embiid draft, the Andrew Wiggins, all that.
Even the Okafor draft. He obviously didn't turn out that great, but there was some intrigue, whether it was Porzingis or D'Angelo. There were some more interesting options, it seems like, than this crop of players. Yeah, and by the way, that 2013 draft is the exact reason why I struggle calling drafts a good draft and a bad draft, because it's like everybody said that draft sucked, and Giannis was there, Rudy Gobert was there at the end of it. There were like CJ McCollum was there. There were good players. Obviously, Mike Carter-Williams didn't come through. That's a mistake. With the Knicks, though, in a couple years, if let's say McHale takes this OG contract, essentially $40 million, I think it's safe to assume that he'll be in that neighborhood. You might even be giving the Knicks a little bit of a discount at that point. And Jalen Brunson takes his max. I mean, we're talking about $130 million for those three guys in a couple years. Now, look, the cap's going to go up. It's going to be $130 million is going to be different than it is even this year. But it will be interesting to see how they build that roster. It does seem like this year and next year, the Knicks have their chance. That's when they can afford these 6-7 guys when they're going to be quite good. The one thing I will say from a Sixers standpoint, though, if Hartenstein does leave, it does feel like, you know, if you can keep the big fella a little bit healthier, Mitchell Robinson's I would say a decent Joel Embiid defender, but also somebody who is not as healthy over the past couple of years, not as durable as Hartenstein over the last couple of years. I'm just saying, it could be one of those situations where that goes from a bad matchup to maybe a pretty good matchup. You never know.
My assumption would be the second big there will be some young, unproven guy. And if there's one thing we know Joel Embiid will do, it is punish those types of players. Those guys pick up fouls early. They're jumping out of pump fakes. They're doing things you can't do. Now, give credit to Mitchell Robinson, who, when he was healthy in that series, defending Joel Embiid. So it's certainly not going to be an easy matchup for him, especially with the fact that you can rotate OG in there and use Mitchell Robinson as the roamer on the back end, depending on what they have elsewhere. So this is certainly not trying to spin this into, hey, the Sixers are really well set up.
Sure.
But there are definitely weaknesses they'll be able to attack if they end up playing those guys in the playoffs.
And there have been reports out there, different guys that now may take a minimum. Andre Drummond, would he look to a situation like the New York Knicks because of how good the team is, right, Derek, and decide that they want to go, you know what, I'll take a little bit less to go play for a situation like that, especially if Hartenstein leaves. Mitchell Robinson has an injury history. There might be an opportunity for someone like Andre Drummond to capitalize on that situation.
Yeah, no, and look, and that's a similar argument to maybe what the Sixers were trying to make. Like, if we get that third star, it'll be easier to fill out a roster with depth by bringing in players on minimum because they want to come there, they want to compete, they know there's going to be minutes and opportunities and touches. I do think there is something to that. Probably should mention Alex Sarr going number 2 to the Wizards.
A French guy whose name we can pronounce.
So, Kyle, why don't you give us a scouting report since you are happy to talk about
why
it.
am I the scouting man? You're Mr. Draft Express down there. I don't know about all this, why I'm being put on the spot. But Alex Sarr, from what I have seen, what I've heard, talked to people, feels like a wing stuck in a big man's body. Or maybe he's a... It's not true. He plays like a wing, but he is a big, and he doesn't quite have the skill yet to justify it. Takes a lot of threes, isn't making a lot of them yet. Good, very good athlete, good finisher. If you could set him up around the rim, think he's going to be very useful as a switch defender. Not sure how good of a pure rim protector he's going to be, although obviously with his measurables, his athleticism, should be pretty good there. I actually think, too, one of the things that I've seen jump out, for a guy his size, he's a pretty good passer. So a guy who can pass on the move. Certainly not like going to build your offense around it, but someone who has a roll man, might be able to make some short roll plays, all that. I guess the question is, where does he top out as an offensive player? Because I think you can see the vision defensively. I think he plays hard, has a good rep there. I just don't know what his ultimate ceiling is as an initiator. Not really an initiator, but as a play finisher and a scorer, I guess, is where you're going to determine how good he is.
And we've seen a lot of players, to your point, that have the big body, the big man body, but play with those guard and wing skills. We've seen plenty of those types of players that when they get to the NBA, they're a little bit behind because they're still trying to catch up with. And now look, the great ones, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, those types of players, they're just so super skilled and they're so great. It works out for them. But for a kid like this, Rich, when you look at Washington, what are they doing? What is their game plan here as they look at
have one?
Do they have one?
It's a great question because I want to get your guys' take. What the hell was that Avdija trade?
I
was
just don't
going to get
it
in
at all.
there, but
I mean,
give it.
They seem to me like they feel very similar to the Sixers circa 2013, 2014. Like they clearly are on this tanking road. They clearly are going to go play the Cooper Flag game pretty hard next year, I would say. They're trying to just get through those 82 games. I'm a little surprised that they would trade Avdija, and I was a little surprised that Portland would be the team that would get him, because Avdija, I think you guys have talked about him on the pod before. That's somebody I would have really liked for the Sixers, but I also think it's somebody that would have made sense for a team in the Sixers position, right?
Yeah.
A team that's trying to win, right? You pay those draft picks to have that contract that's going to be really good for about 3 or 4 years so you can build out the rest of your roster. Portland, they're rebuilding just like Washington is. I don't really get it.
So I would say this. I wonder if they're in the mindset of Brogdon they held on to, or they took in the trade in part because he would hold value over time. And you hold him for this moment where you can flip Brogdon for a Deni type player and say, okay, he's more on our timeline, right? He's a young guy who has already proven he can play. He's on a good contract. So either he helps you get better and he grows along with whatever young core you're trying to build out there in Portland, or failing that, let's just say they keep spinning their wheels and they're not able to take the next step. I still think he's someone that holds that value over time. He's someone that remains interesting to a team like the Sixers, but other contenders or would-be contenders as well. And so from that perspective, I get it. I think it's a really good trade for them. They move out of what is a widely considered a bad draft at the top and say, who really cares? We'll trade that and Malcolm Brogdon, who's not our long-term guy, for someone who we think can be here a while. I love it for Portland. I'm just surprised that it was just Portland, right? I would have thought teams would be banging down their door, Washington's door, I should say, trying to get him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does make some sense for Portland. He is still young. He's 23 years old, so he has a chance to grow with their young core. And I think part of the reason you invest 2 first-round picks in a guy like that, who I think some people would look at right now as a role player, is because you could have him for 6, 7, 8, 9 years. It's not just trying to rent him for 2 or 3 years. And look, he can still grow. I know there's some people who question, he shot 37% from 3. Before that, he was in the low 30s, upper 20s. Some people still question that. I do think he is going to be a shooter. I'm not sure if it's going to be 37% next year, but I think he'll continue to get better. And when you have a chance to, I know some people look at 2 first-round picks and think that's a lot, but one of those is a 14th pick in a bad draft. Another one is, 5 years down the road. When you have a chance to get somebody who can be a 2-way wing for the next 6, 7, 8 years, I think you got to pounce on that.
All right, so here are the full details for the trade. Deni Avdija to the Blazers for Malcolm Brogdon and the 14th pick tonight, plus the 2029 pick to the Portland Trail Blazers. Sixers, we talked about them a lot as being maybe a team for that. Before we do that, it looks like the number 3 pick is in for the Houston Rockets. And even though we had our mock draft and we tried to do things our way, it looked like it's falling in order of what it has been reported. Reed Sheppard from Kentucky going to the Houston Rockets with the 3rd overall pick.
And according to Jake Fisher, Houston will keep this pick. Yep.
Okay, so
I love Reed Sheppard. Like, yeah. I mean, some defensive concerns just because of the body type. But if you were going to bet on a guy his size with his tools to defend at the next level, he was an event creator at Kentucky. I think he had like 2.5 steals a game, something like that. Real aggressive point of attack defender, great hands. But most importantly, and this would have made sense on any team, but definitely on a Houston team that's looking for more shooting, that dude can shoot the piss out of the ball. Like absolute pristine mechanics. He could come off a movement. He can relocate. He's a weapon in transition. He can be a pull-up guy. He is the most dangerous shooter in this draft. It's the reason he's going so high. It shows you the prioritization of shooting and how much that has risen over the last 5, 10, even 15 years in the NBA. I love Reed Sheppard in this class. I probably would have gambled on him pretty high as well. There's a reason we talked about him on our show, despite the fact we didn't think he would get there, because he's a guy, if they would have thought about trading up, and I don't think there really were any serious conversations about that, I would have been interested in Reed Sheppard on the Sixers.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, his shooting is one of the few truly elite skills in this draft. And look, he's 6'2" with a 6'3" wingspan. There's going to be limitations defensively, but it's not going to be effort. He's going to get after it. He's going to force turnovers, get steals, get out and break. Yeah, I like him a lot. But to your point, like I will almost always overvalue shooting, especially elite shooting.
Yep.
A lot of guards in that roster too, though. Signing Van Vliet last year, although a 3-year deal, so there's 2 years left. Certainly now out there you have Jalen Green. Also looking at Cam Whitmore in the wing in that area.
I think the writing's on the wall for Jalen Green, by the way. These rumors about trying to trade for Kevin Durant or Paul George or one of these other guys.
He had that huge Mickey Mouse march, though, man.
He had a crazy march, didn't he?
Cash it in, baby. Jalen Green and all the picks. Get him out of there.
Mickey Mouse march. The one thing I will say is Reed Sheppard, they showed John Calipari, now the coach at Arkansas. It's weird to say.
How about that?
That was one of the most fun teams he has ever had this year. I caught them like 5 or 6 times. Himself, Dillingham, Justin Edwards came into his own at the end. I'm blanking on.
DJ Wagner was there.
Antonio Reeves, was that the guy's name? He was a 4-year player. Anyway, they had a bunch of guards that could handle and shoot it. They were a lot of fun. Didn't get a lot of stops, but I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, also we want to let everybody know that we are broadcasting live here at Garage North in Fishtown. We are the PHLY Sixers crew for our NBA Draft live show, round 1. Round 2 will be beginning at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We'll be back in the studio, but here tonight we are at our spot, our home, Garage North in Fishtown, presented by Coors Light. You come on down, you get $5 Coors Light Pounders and $5 Coors Light Banquets. Look at both of those, Rich and Kyle, 2 beautiful models right there, putting this stuff out there for the drinks that you can get when you come down here. We have them here too. We also have water. Derek, I'm hungry. We always talk about we're hungry. We want some food, but you know, we'll get to that a little bit later. We'll hang out with you here for the entire first round here on this Wednesday night.
You know what I want?
What do you need?
A wireless plan that works everywhere that doesn't break the bank.
There you go.
That's why we love our friends at Mint Mobile, because you know after getting ripped off by all these overpriced carriers over the years, you know there's always a catch when you hear a cheap wireless plan. There is no catch with Mint Mobile. Their secret sauce is they sell wireless service online, no retail stores, no salespeople. They deliver premium phone plans directly to you. So say goodbye to your overpriced wireless plan and get great monthly bills. You don't have to worry about overages. You don't have to worry about just about anything. All of Mint Mobile's plans come with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network, and they start at $15 a month. What a steal. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan, and you can bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch the overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile's limited time deal. Get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. So to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/Sixers. That's mintmobile.com/Sixers. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Sixers. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Lower 40 gigs on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Look at him nailing that disclaimer. So proud
Hey,
of
it's
you.
because it's loud in here. I don't think I actually nailed it.
We also want to make sure we tell you about Rite Aid, specifically Rite Aid Pharmacy Services. With a My Pharmacy account at Rite Aid, you can refill your prescription, schedule a vaccine, get personalized care recommendations, sign up for prescription notifications. All you need to get started is a prescription at Rite Aid. Stop stressing about your prescriptions. Let Rite Aid refill them automatically. Enroll in automated courtesy refills. It's free, easy, and most prescriptions qualify. Talk with your Rite Aid pharmacist or sign up through your My Pharmacy account at riteaid.com. And if you need to make updates to your prescriptions, you can use the Rite Aid mobile app to manage them. With the Rite Aid mobile app, you can transfer or refill your subscriptions, set up medication reminders, enroll in prescription notifications, download the app from the Apple App Store or Google Play. Transfer your prescriptions to Rite Aid today. Just go to riteaid.com/transfer. Rite Aid caring pharmacists are ready to answer your questions and help you stay healthy. Get your prescriptions along with anything at Rite Aid you may need, including over-the-counter medications, household products, cosmetics, and more. Just ask your pharmacy team for details. Restrictions apply.
Derek Bodner, Rich Hofmann, Kyle Neubeck, I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is producing here as we broadcast live from the Garage North in Fishtown. The San Antonio Spurs, pick number 4. They are currently on the clock as Adam Silver is at the podium getting set
I have
to
a
make
feeling
the
it's a guy
selection.
who would enjoy a rook.
Is that right?
Stephen Castle.
Look at man,
Wow.
look at that spot for
Fortune
him.
teller.
Look at that spot for him. Steph Castle going to the San Antonio Spurs. We talked about having no ball handlers there, no point guard with the San Antonio Spurs. Jeremy Sochan as the point guard, Rich, for the first part of the season.
Disgusting.
And not helping out Victor Wembanyama, Rich.
Tough stuff.
Greg Popovich on that, but right here, a guy that decent size, even though they lied to Kyle and told him that the measurements, he was 6'2", 6'3", instead of what he was supposed to be.
What a catastrophe that was for an hour
around
or
the
two.
combine, but they fixed it. 6'6", 6'7" guy, and the guy can do so many things on the floor. It really showed his value in the tournament, especially during that run for the title.
Some of his defense in the tournament, like taking on the big assignments, like Mark Sears in the Final Four. That UConn team, it's funny that the Knicks have reassembled the 2018 Villanova team because that's one of the best college teams of the last 10 years. I'd also say going back, like Kentucky 2012 is very good as well. Last year's UConn team, terrific. And this guy, like, it felt like he did less than he was capable of just because they were so good, they were so well coached. But I kind of enjoyed that about him, right? Like, if they needed dirty work, if they needed rebounding, defense, those type of things, he gave it to them. And I think that is a very Spursy pick. You know, there are some questions about his shooting.
Yeah. So I'm just going to say this directly to the camera, to Mr. Castle. Throw Wemby the fucking ball. That's all you have to do to get 10 assists a game. And everybody will be quiet about everything else for your first year or two as you try to figure it out. As long as you throw it to the 7'4" guy who has an entry pass available to him at basically all times. I love the defensive profile. I've seen some comparisons. If you're looking at guards, maybe a DeJounte Murray type guy.
Drew Holiday
maybe
type.
like a Andre Iguodala on the high end. If you can, bulk up and defend some bigger wings. Obviously, he's like 6'5", 6'6", so he's going to have defensive versatility. The shot's the big swing skill, but I like it for them because with Wemby, you can go in basically any direction, right? If Reed Shepherd had fallen there, you could have justified him and whatever
100%.
concerns you have with him because it's just like
I think
Wemby will protect everybody, any defensive concern. But to double down on, look, we can get a guy who's going to help Wemby on offense, but also is bringing a lot to the table on defense. You start to build a real identity. Wemby's already in these, defensive player of the year, all defense type of conversations in year one. You give him another guy to go along with him. You got Devin Vassell. Maybe they move Keldon Johnson at some point and they start to, put together a well-fitting team. They could be really cooking with gas quickly.
Derek, they also have selection number 8, so 4 picks away from their next one. But your thoughts on Castle and how he fits in with the program there with the San Antonio Spurs?
Yeah, no, I mean, Kyle brought up the big, or maybe it was Rich, brought up the big question mark in terms of his shooting. Shot sub 30% from 3. He did shoot pretty well from the line, so there's some hope there. Has a mid-range game, but just the overall, versatility, defense, profile. I think it's going to be real good next to Wemby. I do think, to Kyle's point, I think we had Shepherd to Shepherd when we did our mock draft. Did we go with Shepherd?
I think we should set Shepherd to the Spurs.
Yeah, but I think that's because he fell. To your point, pretty much any guard they were going to go to that will throw Wemby the ball and has other attributes is going to end up fitting in pretty well there. And I do think they have a pretty strong core to build from, and we'll see what they do with the 8th pick coming up here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, next up on the clock are the Detroit Pistons, Kyle. And
from Rich and I's guy, Troy Weaver.
Weaves. He's now in Washington, isn't he?
He is. He's an advisor, right?
Hey, no wonder they're trying to load up on picks in a dog shit draft.
He told them to
Troy
trade
Weaver's
Deni
on the
Avdija.
case. He said, let's go, fellas.
He told them to
Screw
trade.
what everybody else in basketball
This
thinks.
is how we do it, exactly.
What an era for Weave, though. I mean, man, just what was
The
it,
end
4
of
or
an
5
era.
years. It felt like 15 years, though. It was just bad decision.
I think
after
the
bad
icing on the
decision.
cake was when he started yelling and threatening that fan that was a few feet away from him in the
Come on,
stands.
man. Come
That-
on.
When did that fan yell?
You suck.
Yeah, that's it. That was pretty tame.
It hurts, buddy.
How much money did they eat on the Monty contract, by the way?
65.
Yeah.
65.
It feels like one of the worst, maybe signings in professional sports just ever. You know, just a guy who didn't want to be there at all.
It's like Bobby Bonilla, and then Weave signing.
Yeah. So,
We've's got like the next
Wow.
there was another.
Ron Holland to Detroit.
There was you're
spoiled everybody.
You're spoiling it, man.
Sorry, I did not expect that one.
All
That's a
right,
stunner.
Derek, this is the one that you always talk about, that if it happens, that if he falls to the Sixers, that will be a guy that you would really be interested in. Pistons at 5. Is this a good pick for them? Trajan Langdon, his first draft selection.
Yeah. No, I think he's got, look, I love the pick at 16. Going top 5 is a little bit different. Like, I do think there are some risks here with him, specifically, you know, with some of that shot selection. But when you start talking about guys who have the physical profile to be elite two-way wings, there just aren't that many in this draft, and who also have the ability to, you know, at least projectable tools to create off the bounce and grow in terms of her playmaking. I like him. I don't know if I liked him top 5 liked him, but I certainly liked him.
Hey, listen, when you have your franchise player is a guy that everybody's like, you just got to get him shooters to open up the floor. You look at the guy who everyone says, man, that guy can't shoot at all. And that's the big
And his
concern
shooting
coming
was
into the draft.
real bad,
It was
like real
ugly.
bad,
24% for 3. Now, look, I will give him this. He was shooting from a professional line. This was not the college line, so the jump from high school to there is real. He's not like somebody's like, hey, I shot 35% from the junior line in college. That doesn't mean a whole lot to me, so maybe you give him the argument there. Certainly, as Derek has brought up on the show, he's got a lot of positive attributes, and I think if you go back to high school, I don't like to default too much to the like Tim Tebow school of evaluating prospects. Like the guy's just a winner, right? But he won everywhere.
Yeah.
3 straight state titles, one of which was wiped away by an eligibility issue. Got ruled out of the senior year state tournament, but his team went 29-1 leading into there. He's a do-it-all type guy who can create a little bit, guy who's a good off-ball player. He plays out of his shoes. Great defensive upside. I don't think Detroit is the place for him to develop, especially when they need to play Asar Thompson more. Like they couldn't play him enough last year.
They got what's his name? They got Fred Vincent in there now, though. He's the shot doctor along with Chip England, right?
Did they hire anybody?
Huh?
Did they hire anybody? Kenny Atkinson got hired by Cleveland.
No, they haven't.
Detroit still does not have a coach.
They hired a shooting coach who everybody thought this was Monty's guy,
Right.
but actually it was Trajan Langdon's guy
Fair.
from North. By the way, that guy has like 3 or 4 complete shot miracles. Like Lonzo Ball, that was Fred Vincent. You know, like that was him getting him acclimated to the NBA line.
Yeah.
I loved Ron Holland. I am very bummed because I don't think there was one mock draft that had him this high. Like I think some people even had him in the Sixers range, and that would have been the guy. That would have been my guy.
Yeah.
That if the Sixers had that pick and he was there for them, I would have said, don't trade it. Just take him. Just take the swing on the upside. I understand the shooting was complete dog shit, but I love all of the other positive attributes, particularly the defense, the motor, the slashing, all of those things. But he ends up going 5, and I guess that is a lesson that everybody said this was a draft where, you know, people's opinions where somebody who could go 5, if he doesn't go at 5, could slide all the way down 10 spots. People could have it in a very different order. But yeah, it's a surprise to see him take him high for sure.
6'7", 6'11" wingspan, 38-inch vertical, like a little bit of playmaking chops, gets after it defensively. There's a lot to like, which is why at 16 I really was intrigued by him. To Rich's point, he was one of the guys that I brought up on our last show, where if he fell, I would consider not trading the pick. In fact, I wouldn't have traded the pick if he fell. But the shot's a question mark. Until he figures out that shot, I think the creation equity is going to be a little bit of a question mark, but the upside is there in a draft that does not play very many players with that kind of upside.
So I will tell you this. I published a draft profile on Ron Holland on Monday and made a comment about, could he be a steal as a guy that's going to slide? And I immediately had a couple people in the league reach out and say, he's going to slide. Like his workouts were bad.
Wow.
His last season was bad. So even people
his workouts were definitely bad.
There is a lot of bad rumors out there about how poorly he performed in these workouts. So this is a stunner for me, based on what the plugged-in mock people are saying, what people who work in the league were saying.
Yep.
It's a huge swing. So Trajan Langdon, first day on the job, is taking a gamble.
The folk of the Weaves is still in the room before it to happen like that.
Weave would have paired Ron Holland and Asar Thompson on the wings and let that shooting. Let's see what that looks like. Can you get negative points per possession with an offensive rating? I think you might be able to with that.
As we sit here and discuss all of this, again, broadcasting live from this great spot, our home tonight, and that is the Garage North in Fishtown, our PHLY Sixers NBA Draft Show presented by Coors Light. Coors Light Pounders and Coors Banquets, $5 each.
Love a banquet beer, baby.
Hanging out with us. You see the two guys here with theirs. Derek and I have ours right in front of us as well. We're here with you for the entirety of the first round. And people talking about, hey, there's a lot of noise and all going on. Well, guess what? It's because we packed the place here as they're getting excited for the 16th pick. When we get back, Derek, I'm going to ask you about the 16th pick as we see a guy like Ron Holland go a little bit earlier. Could we potentially see somebody slide for the Philadelphia 76ers to pick number 16? But before we get to all of that, I have to start and let all of you know as we are hanging out, some of these young fellas getting drafted into the NBA, I have to tell you about where they can store some of their funds now as they become
protect
millionaires.
Your cash, fellas.
You gotta
protect your
your money, man. Have to protect your money and your health and all that great stuff, but you gotta protect the money. And that is with TrueMark Financial. They have TrueMark Financial Rewards Visa credit cards now. So if you're looking for a really good credit card and you want to be really responsible, this is the place for you. You can earn rewards for each purchase using TrueMark Financial's Reward Visa credit card and redeem them for travel and retail cards, gift cards as well. Build credit through timely payments, low credit utilization, enjoy fraud protection with features like zero liability. You definitely need that, especially when you're traveling, you get into a tough spot. You want to be able to go to a credit union that you can trust, that'll make sure they handle everything as needed. TrueMark Financial is the spot for you. The saving options: traditional savings account, basic savings account offering a place to deposit funds, earn interest, and withdraw money as you need it. The money market account combines features of savings and checking accounts, offering higher interest rates and limited check writing capabilities. Easy access to your money when you need it. And certificate, fixed term deposit account with a predetermined interest rate. This is really important. And maturity date, offering higher interest rates for locking in funds for a specific period. So whatever player, if Philadelphia drafts at pick number 16, I'm going to see if he can go here. Because TrueMark Financial is federally insured by the NCUA and is an equal opportunity lender. For more information, visit TrueMark.com/PHLY. Also, want to tell you about, if you had to wager a little bit on where these players are going in this draft order, got to send you to the Bet Parks Sportsbook, because when you do that, or maybe your Philadelphia baseball team, last time I looked before we got started, they were up 1-0 over Detroit. I don't know what has happened since, but if you feel good about your team, the best team in Major League Baseball, we are brought to you as well by Bet Parks app. Get in the zone with Bet Parks Sportsbook app. Money is in the moments. When events are coming up there, you want to make sure, baseball team coming back home this weekend, you want to go see them at the park in South Philadelphia, you got it. You want to be able to make sure to see some football in the fall? You got it. Same for this basketball team as well. Maybe even Las Vegas. You want to see all the professional basketball teams out there in Las Vegas and you need tickets? BetPar Sportsbook app is there for you. Win big with all-day action. Win your first $10 bet and earn $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. Download the app. Play along with us. Must be 21 or older. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know does have a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. Welcome back to Charlotte Hornets. On the clock for pick number 6. I didn't see if are they still on the clock?
Okay, so I'm going to bring you there's some inside baseball going on here. There was a report, multiple reports, that Charlotte was going to trade out of this pick.
Okay.
And it looked like Memphis was potentially going to move up
from 9
to take Klingon, who they've been attached to throughout the last month or so. But now it appears Charlotte will hang on to the pick.
Keep the pick.
And they're not trading it at all. Okay. Let alone with, so we know Portland and Memphis are both interested in Klingon, so it'll be interesting to see, does Portland just stand pat, make the pick, or can they maybe extract a little bit more out of Memphis, trade up and get their guy?
Well, they certainly need some talent on that bad basketball team, especially if they lose Miles Bridges due to free agency. If he's out of there, Rich, they may need help at the wing position. They do have some big men and Mark Williams there and a few guys that they have, even Nick Richardson has been talked about, maybe some trade stuff there, but they just need talent. They need talent.
Yeah, they got some last year. I mean, Brandon Miller, I thought came on as the season went on. Like, that kid looks like, I don't know if he's going to be a superstar level player, but if you told me he's like a top 30 guy in his career, I wouldn't be surprised by that. And he's certainly the type of archetype teams are looking for, right? Big wing, can shoot, get his own shot, shoot over people. But yeah, they just need talent. I like their coaching hire this year, getting Charles Lee from the Celtics. That's just a guy who's been an assistant on a lot of good teams, right? And still a pretty young, energetic guy who can grow with that team. So we'll see. You know, like they've changed ownership in recent years. They've changed, I believe, general managers in recent years. They've been good for a long time, Devon. But yeah, they just need talent right now. And it seems like, at least to start with the Miller pick, we'll see what they do tonight. They're off to at least a decent start.
A decent start. All right. So if you had to look at this situation as the pick is about to be in, so before we get to some other things, we'll talk about them. Terry Rozier out again. Miles Bridges gone. LaMelo Ball is the face of that franchise. Brandon Miller now a piece of what's going on there. They trade for Grant Williams, formerly of Boston and Dallas. He couldn't play in the finals for either one of those teams for Grant Williams, but now he is in Charlotte. And again, you know, if they go with Klingon, maybe that means that there's a move there from one of the young bigs that they eventually part ways with, and they go elsewhere. A guy like Charles Lee that has been in some winning situations with Milwaukee and now Boston winning a title there, they have a shot. So
here we go. It's your opportunity to pronounce this name.
I did the first one.
No, I've already done this one on another show. So who did the Hornets draft, Devon?
T.S.
Tijan Salon.
Tijan Salon. And when we looked at him and we talked about
Salone,
him,
because it does have the umlaut on the U.
He had fallen a little bit in the draft where he was more in the teens and 20s when we would see him mocked.
So I did, after we had the pronunciation extravaganza on a recent show, I did look further into this young man right here just to show my due respect to a guy who is now a top 6 pick in the draft. I did hear some things from people about his compete level, like as a guy who plays very hard, very raw athlete. From what I watched on defense, I think he's a guy that's going to take multiple years to get there because he just kind of runs around like a headless chicken at times. And he shot better this year than he has in any other year in his career to date. Obviously, his career is not very long. So there's some skepticism that he's going to be a shooter, at least in the short term. As a competitor, though, gets high marks. Good off-ball guy, good understanding of timing on cuts, relocating, making himself available from a big man out of the post. So it's an upside swing. I think Charlotte basically has to take upside swings, and we'll see what he turns into.
That's not very inspiring, I gotta say.
So
that wasn't the best show in the world.
Rich, I will say this. Someone I talked to basically said, his con is he's got to learn to play basketball, which is it's pretty bad energy.
It sounded like the famous
2 years away from
the
2
Bruno
years away.
pick.
Yeah,
2 years
yeah.
away from being 2 years away. Well, we're at the 6th pick in the draft, and we're already 2 years away from being 2 years away.
Yeah.
Bruno. Yeah, as
What was
Shane
that? That was
W.
friend?
For sure, I think.
Yeah.
Great line. 3 French guys in the top
That's
6.
what I was going to ask you. 3 French guys.
Congratulations to France.
What's happening
Nico
over there?
Batum going crazy right now, going absolutely nuts.
They lost out in Embiid for the Olympics, but they got 3 guys who are worse than him, probably.
France revenge tour.
All right, so Derek, we're seeing a couple of guys that maybe go a little bit holler, and this pick, Ron Holland, we'll see what Portland does here at 7, again, already making a move for Deni Avdija a little bit earlier today, adding them to the team, but we're seeing guys go a little bit higher where maybe we do see a player that we didn't expect fall to the Sixers range around 16.
Yeah, so I guess my question for you guys, I have 5 players right now who, if they fell, I would consider keeping the pick. Kyle, can you guess who the 5 would be?
Dillingham,
Yep.
Carrington,
Yep. Which Carrington, I think there's a pretty good chance.
Carter?
Williams.
Maybe.
Okay, so that's a no.
Carter.
Yeah, Carter.
Collier?
I did have Collier. And then the one that would send
Holland
the fan...
was off the board, or
The Holland was off the board. There's one more that would send the fan base into a riot.
Zach Edey.
No, Topic.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I mean, either of those would throw him into a riot, but yeah, taking the guy who's absolutely not going to play this year would certainly be
It would be
a choice.
It would be a throwback to process days. It would be great. It would be great.
We would get at least a month worth of content out of the debates on that. So, Daryl, I'm not saying to make the pick for us, but I am saying to make the pick for us.
All right, so as we look at this, you are fraud with the super chat here on our draft night special here. Daryl Morey will never be as good as a general manager as Howie Roseman or Dave Dombrowski. The dude got all the NBA fans laughing at us.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a very...
It is a high bar to clear, given where the Eagles have been and where the Phillies are now.
I would argue, though, probably doesn't matter quite as much. Dave Dombrowski and Howie Roseman have 2 of the best owners in their respective sports, and I think ownership matters maybe even a little bit more in those sports too, with the cash spend in football, and also just no salary cap in baseball. You know, it's kind of luxury tax type of thing.
Did you mind them having a joint meeting, Sixers and Commanders, that we talked about
Well,
a little bit?
I will say,
today?
Josh Harris seems to love some pointless collaboration. He really, he loves that.
Devils.
Stuff. Like
where are the Devils in this? They didn't bring them in.
Daryl Morey has been a GM for 20 years now at this point. What the hell is Adam Peters going to tell him? It's like when they hired Bob Myers for their football coaching, and they end up with Dan Quinn. Like, what's going on here? Like, what?
Right. They're acting like it's the second round that's ever happened in draft history.
The Portland Trailblazers with the 7th overall pick from UConn. Their second player, Donovan Clingan, the big man, going to Portland. DeAndre Ayton is there as the starter. What do you make of this pick, Kyle?
So, first thing, it's just he's a big boy. Like that's a guy who's going to protect the rim. I think you would assume he's probably a drop-only guy. You're not expecting him to switch out all that often. Although I do think if you compare him to someone like a Zach Edey,
he is more,
he's more mobile, so probably hangs a little bit better in a playoff context. Obviously, Portland is trying to get to respectability right now is the main thing. And one of the easiest paths to doing that is just we're going to protect the rim and we're going to rebound, right? They have a lot of small guards, a lot of perimeter talent. So you say, hey, let's load up at the rim. There are a lot of people who love this kid as a defensive prospect. Offensively, there's a lot to work out. He's a bad free throw shooter, so he might get hacked. I don't know that he's going to space the floor ever or expand his range much beyond post-ups and little drop-offs and things like that. But I like the pick, mostly because I can't stand DeAndre Ayton, and they're better off playing a rookie who's got some question marks than a guy who just floats through games all the time.
All right, pick number 8 will be the San Antonio Spurs. So we see what they do with their second pick in the top 8. We do have some people here that we've seen already joining us at the Garage North here in Fishtown. We've seen Eugene Ross. We always see Eugene in the chat. Winona's here. She did make it.
I haven't seen
Yeah,
Winona.
Winona's
I need
here.
to track down Winona.
Yeah,
at some
Winona's
point.
here, so we have that. So we appreciate everybody coming out to hang out with us. We'll be here for quite a bit. We still have some picks before we get to the Sixers. We are live at Garage North in Fishtown, presented by Coors Light, Hofmann Orthopedics as well, handling all of our draft coverage for the week. So we have some great sponsors here with us backing. So of those names, Rich, that Kyle and Derek ran off, those 5 that Derek had running, is there anybody, because we really haven't gotten your thoughts on the draft, people that you would like? You mentioned Ron Howard earlier, but with the people that are left, not knowing what San Antonio is going to do here, do you have a favorite if he did fall? Do you have one that your least favorite around that 16 spot?
I have 2 of the names that Derek said that I would like. Now, I don't like them as much as Holland because you get the overlap with Maxey issues for both of them, and that is Isaiah Collier, who I just think, like, if you give that guy NBA spacing, like, there's a chance he pops and turns into just a guy that puts a ton of pressure on the rim. I like some of the passing stuff with him. He could just be a really good, maybe not even a starter, but like a third guard who's just a very good player. So he is one of them. And then Rob Dillingham is another one where it's kind of hard, like, watching him and Shepard together. Like, those guys were dynamic. Like, Cal would just roll the ball out for them and have them run pick and rolls.
And he did. It wasn't just that he could. He did just roll the ball out.
He did, and it was like beautiful offense. Usually he does that, and the offense stinks. Like, it's bad. It's clunky. Those guys were a blast to watch. Now, Dillingham is not very big. I certainly, I wouldn't hold out hope that he's like a long-term starter at the guard position, but I think he could be a pretty good player, and he could shoot the hell out of it too. That's the other thing.
He's the one I went back and forth on the most. When we did our show, I pretty much dismissed him because I just think there's almost no chance they can hold up defensively. But there is a talent play there, especially if now we're talking about Brandon Ingram at a $36 million slot. I can justify keeping this pick more than if I thought they could still get Paul George. So because of that, I've talked myself into Dillingham as an upside play because I'm not as worried about the $4 million impacting their plans.
I've also talked myself more into Dillingham. I just think the talent bet is too good.
And that Lou Williams role that we discussed?
If you can get Lou Williams at 16 in a draft that people don't think is great, I think you sign on the dotted line.
You got one good Kentucky guy that they drafted, so why not go for another? As we look at this one,
who was the other guy, Rich?
I'm curious why Derek wouldn't have this guy. Maybe he doesn't think he's going to fall to the Sixers. What do you think of Devin Carter from Providence?
I think he was certainly in my list if I didn't say him. I thought Kyle said him.
Oh, you said Carter?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry, I lost him.
Yeah,
I would have a lot of interest in him. I actually think he probably, of the guys that I'm interested in, has at least the best chance of contributing right away. And that's obviously something you don't count on. Daryl Morey was pretty explicit about that. It doesn't happen a lot, especially at that point in the draft. But I kind of like him. He reminds me a lot of D'Anthony Melton, honestly.
Yeah. Well, they have almost identical measurements at the combine. Like, down height, wingspan, weight are basically exactly the same. So that's a pretty natural comparison between those two guys.
And I know that he took a big jump with his shooting this year. Like, the free throw numbers are not that great either. There are indicators that would say maybe he's not as good as a 37% shooter as he is this year. I watched a lot of the Providence games because I watched Villanova and the Big East games. Man, he took a bunch of shots. They were difficult shots, too.
Yep, absolutely. So let me ask you this, because there was another reported deal here today with a player staying in with his current team, and that is Nick Claxton with a 4 years, $100 million deal. What were your thoughts on the Brooklyn Nets keeping Nick Claxton at that $25 million annually number?
Little surprised.
There's a wrinkle. Do we want to spoil
No, that's why I looked at you.
Well, there's a trade connected to it. That's why.
Oh, okay. Wow.
You want to keep going, and then we'll get to it.
Well, it's just tough because when you have these alerts on your phone, it kind of breaks your brain for a second.
That's a good spot for him, though. That's a good spot.
Yeah. All right, should we just say it?
No.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So Rob Dillingham is allegedly,
you just
reportedly,
like throwing it off, don't you?
Rob Dillingham to San Antonio, but there are reports out there that he could be getting flipped to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So, to Derek's point on good fit for him, if he goes to Minnesota, those defensive concerns that we're talking about with size They got tons of size, so you don't have to worry too. I mean,
And tons
it's
of size
behind
on the
him.
perimeter, too.
Yes, so you have all the ability in the world to hide him if they're able to pull that off. I'm less bullish on him in San Antonio, but I think that'd be an awesome pickup. I'm curious to see.
What did they give up?
Oh,
That hasn't been reported yet.
That's the big question here. And
What
that's
is
why I
that?
wanted
Just get him into the top
to get
10.
out ahead of this because. So let's get into Dillingham. Like, Derek, you said you've softened your stance on him a little bit. Why would you have been in on him for the Sixers? Is it just a pure talent
Just
bet?
pure talent. Whenever you have a guy who can create out of a pick and roll and can shoot, you take a chance. It's really not much more complicated than that. I think the defensive concerns would have been almost. I really don't understand how that would have worked out for an extended run. But like I said, because I'm no longer that concerned about clearing that $4 million in cap space, I'm just willing to take an upside play.
I love the language. He could be on the move to Minnesota. I love it.
They have all of their picks going to Utah from the Gobert trade, though. I'm very curious to see what they were able to trade to get up to number 8 in the draft. Right?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And look, off their bench they had Nickeil Alexander-Walker, where he was one. Mike Conley is starting.
Maybe they traded a player. Like, I don't know right now.
Kyle
but
Anderson is a free agent. He was
2031,
in that rotation.
maybe?
And that's an interesting spot. But look, there's some scoring off the bench when Anthony Edwards goes and sits down. You get some scoring off the bench potentially if the guy, right away
and frankly,
gets it going.
spacing. Because a lot of those bench lineups have Rudy Gobert, so you already have one non-shooter on the floor. They had a bunch of lineups that also had Kyle Anderson. We saw in the playoffs when the rubber meets the road, you cannot have guys who are getting ignored out there. And so I think this is a bet on, hey, Rudy Gobert can clean things up on the back end, but we need that instant offense off the bench. So I like it for them. I just don't know what it costs.
Of Naz Reid also coming off the bench with him. It's not bad.
I agree with these guys. Great fit for Gillingham. Like, to just have that level of size behind him. The defensive concerns are not as big of a deal, and they need shooting.
According to Woj, the pick has been traded. The trade is official. Yep.
Wow! I'm getting mobile alerts, and I'm going to spoil myself, but not the viewers at home. The next one is a shocker for me. I'll say that.
I'm trying to get eye contact while Rich is talking. Like, I see this one happening, but we're waiting as everybody is here. They got some stuff happening here. So
they're pretty fired up for this next pick here.
Memphis at number 9. We'll see what they do. The Klingon was a name that we talked about for Memphis, potentially at 9, so we'll see what they do there. But listen, this is somebody might fall where we thought that they.
No, I mean with Edie going this high, there's a real chance somebody falls now.
Okay, you just smoked it, right?
People are online. Why are we worried about it? They're watching us, not ESPN.
In terms of the Dillingham trade are in, according to Woj, a 2031 unprotected first and a protected 2030 swap.
Wow. That is a great trade by San Antonio.
That's a huge get for them.
No player.
No player. One pick, unprotected, and a swap.
Home run for San Antonio.
Here's what I don't get about Edie. He was great last year, right? He was great. What changed to make him a top? Because there were people who didn't think he would go in the first round last year. What changed? Like, I'm a little concerned he jumped this far.
Yeah, I would have had interest in him at like 20, right? As a guy that's like, he's a rotation big, but top 10 pick, even in a bad draft, is like, you're asking that guy to be a foundation player. And frankly, part of Memphis' identity has been, you play Jaren Jackson at the 5 and you can play small. So if you're committing to, I actually like Zach Edey reasonably well, right? Like I don't think he's a non-NBA player.
No, I agree with you.
But this is crazy.
But it's not like I'm confused. I'm confused. And going back to the Minnesota trade, like you're really giving up a top 10 pick for a pick 7 years down the line. Like I don't think I've ever seen any GM operate with that kind of job security before. Like that's wild. That's wild.
Well, I guess you can do it when you already have made the 4th pick in the draft, and I don't know. I think that's gold down the line. It seemed like Memphis, though, they were just dead set on getting a center, right?
They just wanted some size.
Yeah, I mean, they traded Steven Adams earlier in the offseason.
Yeah.
They just seemed, or was that at the trade deadline? I forget. But it seemed like they were pretty much linked to Klingon for a long time.
And that didn't happen for them. And look, when you look at their situation, even though they lost their main guys, when they got rid of Adams and Jaren Jackson was the only guy out there, they had no bigs. They were playing, Bismack Biyombo, we were talking about him earlier with, I think it was Rick who was talking about Bismack Biyombo a little bit earlier, where, I mean, they had no size, so they just simply seemed like they wanted a guy that can play the same position if they needed him to.
Devon, I wish I had heard more than like 3 words in those 3 paragraphs that you said. It is. Listen, I'm happy for all our people that showed up. There's some raffles going on. That's why you come out.
I have to speak louder because I can hear you, so it's on me. I have to speak louder.
It is not about speaking louder. Everybody speaks louder. Then we just end up in a place where nobody hears anything.
Derek, Zach Edey to the Memphis Grizzlies. What are you looking at here with Zach Edey to the Grizzlies? Similar, I mean, size, the Klingon, they just needed a big man.
Yeah, look, I sort of like Zach Edey as a potential backup center. To change your identity for a post-up big, it's shocking. You don't invest a top 10 pick in him and then not try to feature him on offense. It's just...
He may be the least friendly Ja Morant pairing of any player in the league, not just the draft. Ja Morant is go, speed. And this guy is going to walk up and down the floor every possession.
He will not be in 30% of their possessions. He just won't be a participant.
Well, hey, we're now up to pick number 10. And the Utah Jazz, do they stick to the script? Do they go white guy here at number 10? And go Dalton Connect, as we talked about on our mock draft show. Do they stick to the script? Utah Jazz.
I'm about to do like a Ric Flair impression of it. Profiling.
But look, as we talk about this, Zach Edey may be falling out of the range of the Sixers where the Sixers pass him. Guys are starting to fall maybe where we were looking at it like, hey, they might keep this pick. Talent is there.
I'm sorry, I can't really hear right now.
It's like trying to do a show from inside an airplane engine right now.
We love all our people here. Love them.
Well, we are broadcasting live from the Garage North here in Fishtown, and we are presented by Coors Light. $5 Coors Light, $5 Coors Banquet. If you're here with us, you can tell we've got a lot of people here, and they're giving away the prizes. They're giving away all the raffle prizes that they had. We did have an autographed Julius Erving basketball.
I just hope they're done by the time the Sixers are up, because it would be real nice to be able to talk about it.
We can tell them to do that. We can ask them to do that. So they're giving away the great prizes that we've had here. We have some tickets to give away, some tickets to give away. Rick just won, and that was fantastic. We got Rick winning some stuff here. As Rick wins, I don't know what he won, though.
Are we at a frat party? What is going on here? And the bottom line is, for all the people out there.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, my God. This is outrageous.
Absolutely
outrageous.
We do have a great crowd here. And I will add,
Just
sometimes when it's bad,
it's
good.
Rick won the Julius Erving.
Rick, who came all the way out from Coatesville for the show. Rick Sachs in the chat every day. Thank you, Rick.
So look at that. I knew you want that.
Wonderful.
You want that. Absolutely. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
I'll give you Watch yourself, buddy. Don't drop the...
Oh, man. What's up, man? Good to see you. All right. Cool, man. Appreciate it. So, yeah.
Okay. We're done on the announcements, yeah?
We're good. Renee is done. We appreciate Renee Washington for helping us out from the PHLY Philly show from the Union, and she did everything there and giving away all the prizes there live here with the announcements being over. And Rick, as Noob says, go get him, Rick.
Because
Go
Rick
get him another Rick.
won, and yes, the announcements are in fact
Cody
over.
Williams to Utah. What do we think?
Cody Williams, okay, brother of Jalen, going to is still building, so this is a good spot for him. Good coach, good organization. Danny Ainge typically makes pretty good picks. Cody Williams a pick there.
No, and part of the reason when Kyle brought him up, I just didn't think there was any chance he was really going to fall to 16. Really good physical tools, good driving to the basket. Shot pretty well from 3, right? But on pretty low numbers, pretty low volume.
The volume is up there, and he is a good free throw shooter, at least, or like a decent free throw shooter, I believe.
What I was getting at, the numbers are pretty good, but the volume is, I think, leaving people with some question marks. But if he figures that out, there's certainly a lot of tools, and I mean, I thought he was a top 10 pick for pretty much the entire time.
He has definitely benefited from his brother being a late bloomer as a shooter. I think a lot of people are kind of assuming, well, Jalen did it, so maybe he can too. I mean, look, honestly, in these type of drafts, a guy who's 6'6", 6'7", who's a real ball handler and can create for others, he has actual point forward potential. Will he get there? I don't know. But if you're comparing him to some of the other guys in this class, it's like you might as well gamble on him. I also think depending on what Utah does, if they hold on to marketing and you are able to continue spacing the floor in that way, that's going to help him out a lot because then the pressure is not on him to shoot right away.
So Chicago is taking Buzelis, which that was a spot where a lot of people were thinking Devin Carter would go. So there's a chance some people might be falling here.
There was a rumor that Carter had promised him, or that Chicago had promised Carter.
Sorry, my brain, if it worked that way, then that would be great.
My brain is still rattled from the loudspeaker and the loudness and everything else going on here. We're back.
All right, so your thoughts on Buzelis. You've talked about him before. Mateus Buzelis in Chicago doing some things as they've added also to their team Josh Giddey.
Yeah, I mean, look, I haven't spent a whole ton of time scouting him in large part because I didn't think there was any chance he was really going to fall. I am starting to get really interested to see who will fall here, though. Like, now it's starting to get serious where, like, could someone like Carter fall? Because, like Rich was mentioning earlier, like I think that's a guy who could step in and actually contribute pretty early. A little older, he's really good defensively. I think there's a chance he could contribute earlier on in his career than a lot of people that could be left here. So it's getting interesting now.
So with 5 picks to go, here's who's on the board that I think we're interested in: Carter, Carrington, Dalton Connect.
Yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't gone yet.
I'm surprised he hasn't gone yet. Topic, although that one would send shockwaves throughout the Philadelphia area. Collier, probably. I think he's been expected to fall, so he's not really a slider, but he's in that conversation. McCain, I'm not big on him, but I think he's a projectable role player, so I think he makes a lot of sense in that area.
His shooting is definitely an elite skill.
Yeah, so that gives him a clear path, and then even like not a sexy pick, but Tristan da Silva is a guy who makes sense. Like I think he's got very low bust potential. I think he's also got very low high-level starter potential for that matter. But I think he'd be a pretty easy plug-and-play rotation guy.
Right now, Rich, who would you focus on looking at, hoping that they do slide?
I'm rooting for Carter, but it is funny though that and I think this has been pointed out recently that some of the age gaps on some of these players, Bub Carrington versus Devin Carter, that is a legitimate 4-year age difference, right? And that's a different type of thing. Now, I do think the Sixers could justify taking the older guy, thinking okay, he was a little bit of a late bloomer. He will come in and help us more right away. But that is a consideration here, right? I would pick Carter if I had my druthers.
We haven't talked a lot about Connect because we just simply did not think he would
be there. He would get picked. Connect is 5 years older than Buck Carrington.
He's 23.
Yeah, so what do you make of that? If he's there, I mean, I know you're choosing, but the possibility of having that type of shooting, that shot creation there, what do you think?
Yeah, and he's
just because we haven't talked about it, we didn't think so.
Yeah, and I still sort of don't think so. I would be surprised if he doesn't go in the next couple of picks here.
Right.
But look, when you can have that versatile of a scorer, that good of a shooter, and a little bit of size, there's certainly interest for sure. I tend to lean a little more towards the defensive prospects. That's in part why I've been focused on Carter. But also I was focused on Carter because I just didn't expect Connect to fall. So
I think Connect is in some ways a more realized version of what you would want Bub Carrington to be. their signature skills are shot making. They're pull-up shooters, guys who they can get to the mid-range, comfortable pulling from deep, but Connect, having spent more time in college, has gotten there as a guy who can be a viable pull-up three-point shooter. Now, can
And fewer
Carrington,
bozo shots too. Yeah.
yes, I would agree with that. Now, can Carrington get there? There are a lot of people who think yes. There's a reason that people think he will be gone prior to the Sixers pick, and I don't know if either guy is necessarily better on defense if you're trying to project them. Like Bub is shorter and skinnier for the time being. But Connect's got quickness, side-to-side speed type of issues. There's also, I would worry a little bit about Connect at the next level creating against NBA athletes, right?
Yeah.
Like I think there's a chance that the margins will shrink and his shot making goes down, and then it's like, okay, his signature skill is not as useful. What else happens? But I do think if he's there at 16, I'd have a lot of interest in it.
Let me ask you guys, does Bub have the off-ball potential that Connect showed this last year at Tennessee? I'm not as familiar with this game.
Probably not, but he played a lot of on-ball for Pitt. Like they had a lot of shooters around him. They asked him to create, and I think what he showed creation-wise was really interesting. I thought he could pull up off the dribble. You want to extend that out to NBA three-point range, but I also thought once he got in the middle, he had a little bit of shot creation equity for his teammates. He wasn't really asked that, so I think he'd have to grow, and that's part of where the 18 is, but he wasn't a high-volume off-ball shooter. But I think there's a potential there. Maybe not to Connect's level, but I think there's a potential to be on and off. Yeah.
It's really hard to tell when he spent so much of the year as just you have the ball, figure it out type of guy. So it's hard to even know if he's a willing catch and shoot guy. I would say that because he's such a viable pull-up guy, you would bet on him to like, okay, you can translate that, the mechanics are clean, all that. The only question mark I would say is there are plenty of guys, including guys we've covered, like James Harden, who are very comfortable on the pull-up and just absolutely refuse to take catch-and-shoot threes. So that's something that teams probably have a better feel for, having talked to him, worked him out, all that kind of stuff.
Steph Kayson gave us a super chat. Did not add anything in there, but we appreciate the super chat. Nevertheless, we really appreciate it. A nice 1999 donation for our super chat here.
There you go.
From Steph Kayson. So we really appreciate that, Steph. Glad that you are listening. Hope everything is good as we hang out with you here today. Here, getting ready for this show, the Chicago Bulls. Did you officially making the pick official here with
That felt like it was 15 minutes ago that they made that pick.
Did you see this from Bobby Marks? Minnesota increased their luxury tax bill by $28 million by selecting Rob Dillingham.
They must really like him.
They must really like him. They must really
Which owner
like him.
signed off on it? They don't even know who the owner is.
That's why.
Hey, A-Rod made a lot of money, baby.
That's why. Yeah, they couldn't agree on it, so they just said, "Go ahead
Glenn
and do
Taylor
it."
called him poor, man.
Oh, man. That whole situation is such a disaster.
Unbelievable. And they had this great run, and the two warring factions are sitting across from each other. It's so bad.
Who are the Lannisters and who are the Starks in the Minnesota ownership battle?
Well, I think A-Rod and Mark Laurie, is it Laura? I don't know. I think they have to be the Lannisters just because they're younger. But I don't think Glenn Taylor is like he has like the nobility of the Starks either too. Like he's just kind of been a bum the whole time. The Starks ran the North pretty well for a long time. Come on.
I can't remember the guy's name. Who Rob Stark marries his daughter.
Phrase.
The Phrase.
yeah.
Maybe Glenn Taylor is Frey.
Walter Frey.
Walter Frey. I wanted to say Warner Frey, and I was like, that's not right. I haven't watched Game of Thrones in a while because I pretend that show doesn't exist anymore. But it was a good show once upon a time.
Honestly, I will go back someday and just watch the first 6 seasons and then check out.
Yeah, I was
It
out
should have ended
the
after
entire
4.
time.
Yeah.
I was out the entire time, so you guys have at it.
Oh, you missed 4 incredible seasons and then a huge disappointment at the end. So maybe it's better you didn't get invested.
And that's why you got a spinoff.
Are you watching the new show?
I am, yeah.
I can't get into that.
Season 2 has been better, but I have my complaints about season 1.
All right, OKC is on the clock at pick number 12. The rich maybe getting richer here, adding a nice piece here. we'll get to them in a little bit. But I wanted to get back to your thoughts on the Nick Claxton thing with the Brooklyn Nets. 4 years, $100 million, 25 annually. You were a little surprised by that.
Well, yeah, and I will say I liked what the Nets did a couple nights ago because they needed to pick a lane, and they honestly needed to pick the lane that they chose, but they had a big problem, and that, like, as of a few days ago, they actually couldn't tank. Like, Houston owned their picks, so for them, even if they paid a premium and gave them, 2 or 3 of those premium Suns picks down the road, for them to be able to get their own picks back the next couple of years in what are considered pretty loaded drafts at the top, I thought it was a good kind of get out of jail, not for free move, but, you know, to get on a better course. So I like what they did. I'm a little surprised that a tanking team would say, hey, Nick Claxton, here is $100 million, but do you think they'll be able to trade that at some point? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I mean, look,
I'm not crazy about that deal.
The cap goes up, so it'll get cheaper relative to the high end of the cap over time. I think the bloom has kind of come off the rose for Claxton over the last few years, where people were treating him like he was Bam Adebayo, where he's like, oh man, this guy is a transformative type switch defender and all that. And it's like, I'd like to see that actually happen rather than be sort of a theory. So I like him. I give him like mid-level type money, I think. I don't think I'm giving him like $25 million a year and making him one of your cornerstone players for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I don't know if 25 mil a year is even really cornerstone anymore. Like, that's just starter money. It's probably like
by default, he's a cornerstone. They traded their cornerstone away.
It's probably like 5 to 7 million too much, but like 15 to 20, I thought was probably what he was going to get. So
I'm sure they think it's tradable. That some playoff team, some contender is going to say, we need a switch big. Like, we need somebody who can switch 1 to 5 and do a decent job of staying in front of people. Now, he doesn't provide kind of the spacing on the other end of the floor, but he does that pretty well for a center.
And your thoughts on, since we did our podcast earlier on the Mikal Bridges trade, your thoughts on that on the Knicks side?
It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. No offense, but it's a lot. I do think if they lose this year, I'm going to start calling them the Nova Knicks plus 5 picks because they are pot committed to this core group of players. But I agree with what Kyle wrote and what he said, and that I think the Knicks, that was a risk that they could take more than the Sixers. Like, the Knicks have these other ancillary pieces. They have this runway for a few years where they're going to be able to contend and have depth. Where the Sixers, they could have made that trade and they would have had, you know, how much cap space would they have had, Derek, if they would have just taken Mikal into
the Sixers or the Knicks?
Yeah, Sixers into the cap space.
So they had $64 million. Mikal cost 26.
Yeah.
So yeah, they still would have had $38 million.
So they would have been able to get, I think, 2 pretty good players, and maybe even 3. Maybe even split that up 3 ways, and then have the room exception left over. But that's it. Like, the Knicks have like players that we know work in the playoffs, players that we know have chemistry and can defend and play together. So I will say, like, it feels a little rich for me, but I do at least understand it more from their perspective. And that's because of the great moves they've made over the past 4 years, and it's assembling that roster.
It's killing me to not talk about the pick that
really
we all know is coming
and
have known it's coming for the last 3 minutes. But Devon, the arbiter of the draft over there, says
I'm
we're
so
not allowed
used
to
to
spoil
doing it and just letting the things happen and talk about it as it happens. I'm just so used to doing it that way, but I will go with the consensus. I'm not opposed to that at all.
It's okay.
I'm a team guy. I passed the basketball, so it's all good.
No, it's okay.
But no, with the OKC pick, let's talk about them because get your thoughts on the Alex Caruso piece, that trade with him going there from the Chicago Bulls, Josh Giddey going to Chicago, and now here with the pick at number 12, they're going with one of Derek's guys as we talk about a guy that, you know, very curious to see where he would go. And with this 12th overall selection, the Oklahoma City Thunder take Nikola Topic. Did I say that right? Topic.
Yeah, Topic.
Okay.
All right, Derek, how sad are you that Topic went to the Thunder?
It just feels like the Thunder get to do everything I wish the Sixers could do. They get to build this wonderful team with all this cap space. They get to make draft picks with a long view still. It's just it's wild how well they are set up, and the fact they get to see this thing through. And I'm very jealous. And they get to draft players I like because they're not worried about them not contributing in year one.
Well, they tried this
everything.
years ago. They did try it. They didn't execute it the way. All right.
Adam Silver's letting these guys get away with it. I'm very jealous. I'm very jealous. No, I think he's a good fit with them. I think he can play next to Shea if he ever gets healthy. And the injury you expect he will. It'll just take him some time. And look, his passing, when he gets downhill, his passing is elite. And that kind of creation is just really, really valuable. And to have two players who can create like that, if his jump shot comes around, I think he's going to be really good.
Yeah, and look, I love just stylistically the guys who are drivers but are not blow-by guys. It's a lot of start, stop, hesitation, head fake. Like I don't always like doing the white guy to white guy thing, but kind of that Goran Dragic type of style where it's not necessarily about the first step as it is using your body and body English to sell guys on where you're going. And yeah, I think he's a good interior passer. When he gets around the rim, he's a really creative finisher as well.
Dump passes and bounce passes to Shet should be really good.
And I think if you just look at the touch that he shows on a lot of those shots around the rim, I know he hasn't been that great of a shooter up to this point, but generally I would bet on guys like I think we saw with Maxey, right? He had the really refined runner and floater package. You could see the touch was there, the free throw shooting was there, and you just needed to see the success from the three-point line. I think there's a chance that Topic long-term is able to shoot, and then he goes from, hey, this is like a decent flyer on this guy at 12 to, oh, wow, the Thunder got a real guy and another real guy on a team that just has an embarrassment of riches right now.
When you have this many draft picks and when you're this good already, you should be taking swings like this. You should have a long view like that, and good on them for having that.
All right, your thoughts on what they've done so far, including Caruso?
The Caruso trade really pissed me off, man. It really, like the Knicks-Nets trade at least made sense for both sides. Like, you could kind of see what they were trying to do. Oh, we got another pick. Oh, no.
We can't talk about it yet, though. No talking about it.
I don't like it, okay? I don't like what's coming down the pike. The Caruso trade pissed me off. I think the Bulls front office is, I think they have, Weave is now out. I think the Bulls are in. They are the worst front office in the league, run by Arturas Karnisovas and Jerry Reinsdorf. I don't know what the hell is going on with his sports empire over there, but they stink over there in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, all right, so the Sacramento Kings on the clock at pick 13.
They put that pick in quickly. As soon as OKC was off the...
Did they not expect him to be there? So they just said, let's just go. Devin Carter, Providence. He's not going to fall to the Sixers now. Going to Sacramento, and that's after, Kyle, they inked Malik Monk to an extension to 4-year deal. So they have also, with De'Aaron Fox being the face of the franchise, they also have, what's my man's name from Baylor, the backup point guard?
Davion Mitchell. He's fallen out of favor. I think Keon Ellis is viewed as kind of the two guard of the, maybe not of the long-term future, but of the immediate future.
Yeah, Kevin Huerter is also there, also falling out of favor, injured a lot too, but his fit with the Sacramento Kings.
Oh, I love it, because what they've needed is a guard who is versatile enough defensively that he can play with kind of any of these guys, right? Where he could play alongside De'Aaron Fox. He can play alongside Malik Monk, and he gives you different looks, different options to go there. I also think, you brought up Kevin Huerter, I think part of this sets them up to, if you're going to trade Huerter, if you're going to attach him and another contract, there have been rumors that they're in for somebody like a Zach LaVine. I think Kyle Kuzma's name has come up some today around the league that they might get in there for. So if you add another guard that you feel is, I think Devin Carter's a relatively safe pick because I think the defense allows him to get on the floor right away. The shooting is the swing skill. So he helps you right away. And now maybe Sacramento says, hey, we're going to take a gamble. We're going to go for one of these bigger forwards or wings. And we're going to start really putting together like our actualized team here and try to go from, that fringe fight into the back of the playoffs type of position to maybe they're a real deal top 6, top 5 team in the West would be their hope.
All right, so that's going to be the pick for Sacramento. Didn't waste time. They're going to get that one in there. And so right now with Carter off the board, Rich, when we look at these guys that are still available, man, there are a lot of players still available. So Portland is at 14. That's reportedly going to Washington. 15 is the Miami Heat. And then the Philadelphia 76ers. So we're getting closer. Which names? Is it still Carrington for you if now that Carter is off the board? Are you more intrigued by Dalton Connect now that he might fall?
I'm intrigued by Connect. I didn't think he was going to fall this far. Like, he kind of just wasn't even on my radar. But I also thought Ron Holland was going to be available around this point, too. So it's been a different type of
Connect, like, he's not a good defender. But he's big and he's athletic. Now, the athleticism probably shows up a little bit more with, like, vertical pop. He's a really good vertical athlete. Sure. But I think there's probably more defensive upside if you can grow that portion of his game. He's been so focused as a scorer throughout his college career, and he's good at it, and the shooting would be a day one skill. Like, for his career, I think he's made over, like, 43% of his catch-and-shoot threes, so that would be where he contribute early. But he has the athleticism to run off ball a little bit. He can come off from screens. He's a movement shooter, and if you can grow that defense to where he's just not a liability, I do think he can be a pretty long-term contributor. Like, I think there's upside there, which is why he's a top 10 prospect.
Now, that said, do you think he's getting past Miami, where it's just like they will take the ready-made guy
and
just
also remember, Miami was a team that drafted right in front of the Sixers in the Tyrese Maxey trade.
Precious Achiuwa, right?
They got that one wrong.
They got that one wrong, so we'll see what they do
Redemption tour.
Yeah. So, hey, listen. All right, folks, things are really starting to shape up. As we get closer to the pick, we are getting ready for pick number 14, the Portland Trailblazers selecting for the Washington Wizards. That because of the Deni Avdija trade that was done a little bit earlier in the day. Miami at 15, Philadelphia at 16. We are here live at Garage North in Fishtown. Sixers crew, Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck on the far end. Rich Hofmann to my right. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is here producing. You hear all the great people that came out to support us here for our first NBA Draft live show here on location. Sixers memorabilia, we gave that away a short time ago. Some PHLY gear also going available here tonight. And then we also have some free tickets that were given away to the opening night game for the Philadelphia 76ers 24-25 campaign. We have $5 Coors Light Pounders that are here, $5 Coors Banquets also that are here. A ton of folks here, some good food. And I've seen a lot of people when we got here and they started to really fill in. Doesn't seem like a lot of people left, Derek. They're still here.
Yeah, no, they really are. It was a good turnout. It was great to talk to them before the show, and they're sticking around.
Yep, they absolutely have. So, pick number 14 for the Portland Trailblazers. Is it in? Simply because, hey, we're here. We talk about it. If it's already available, let's just talk about it. I'm going team player on this one.
All right.
Yeah, what is it?
Bub Carrington. To the Blazers, but to the Wizards.
Bob Carrington, who I liked going before Dalton Connect, is pretty shocking. It's pretty shocking.
How bad were Dalton Connect's workouts for these teams? Because
you'd think he'd just be able to shoot it in those empty gyms, huh?
Did they ask him to do some slide drills and he just fell the fuck down? Like, I don't know what's happening. He was one of the surest bets in this class. And I get it. Maybe there are people that think there are better two-way bets and concerned about the athleticism tools, all that. I'm pretty shocked by it. I will be really irritated if he goes to Miami. It's such a Miami pick.
I'm beating Chops and Woj to this one. He's going to Miami. It's over. The pick is in.
All right, hold on. If he goes to Miami and that's the scary pick, he should be good enough for the Sixers too, regardless of the sliding drills.
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, it's just because you know what'll happen. You're exactly right. Sixer fans will see that and say he's going to Miami. He's now going to be an all-star. He should have fallen to us. But you know how some are like, no, let's just stay away from him.
If he is there, it's a classic case of don't overthink it. This guy was a high-level producer in a tough conference. The SEC was really good this past year, and he was by far the best player in the SEC on a pure
Yes.
per minute production basis, has a real skill set that you can plug in right now. I think he's ready to contribute right now. He's a bit older. That's bad for upside, but good for a team that needs production right now. I think if he gets there, I think you just walk right up to the commissioner and say that the pick is in.
Offensive skill set, he is what you want next to Embiid and Maxey.
Yes.
And I think he can be that pretty much from day one. There are certainly going to be questions whether or not he can defend at a high enough level to be a Nick Nurse's playoff rotation. That's fair. But offensively, I think it makes a ton of sense.
But look, when we've talked about different players, like let's say a good shooter in Gary Trent Jr., falling out of favor there. But 6'2", 6'3" in size. We're talking about a guy that's much bigger. Big. But much bigger in a situation like this. Played in a lot of big games. And again, the skill set. While we focus so much on Paul George and Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram, and players and what they do, and we know they do specific things really well. We know they can shoot. But they also need role players that can simply shoot the basketball.
You would plug him in as a guy that he's the heir apparent to the Curry, Redick, Joel Embiid two-man game, right?
Yeah.
You're going to plug him in. Now, maybe he doesn't get to that level right away, but hopefully 2-3 years down the line, when he is in his mid-20s, he'd be able to do that. But I just think Miami's going to take him. If they're actually running back the Jimmy Butler, that whole team there, they utilize off-ball shooting as much as anybody, right? Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson as well. Like they could really use a guy like that, and I think they're just going to take
it. It seems like he does fit that situation.
What do we think about Carrington to Washington, by the way? Anybody have any strong thoughts on? I feel like there's just too much overlap in all of their guys and what they're trying to do.
I really like Carrington as a prospect. It's a shame he's got to die in Washington.
Well, you get to see him 4 times. There's that. There's that.
I'm more excited 6 years down the road when he's able to get out of there and go to a real organization.
Second team Buck Carrington's going to be a problem.
Yes, he is. And the pick is officially in. Buck Carrington is now a member of the currently Portland Trailblazers that will eventually be the Washington Wizards. We await to see what the Miami Heat do next. How fast will they get that pick in? Since you're predicting Dalton connect to the Miami Heat, because it just simply makes sense. How fast is that?
They're not afraid of white guys down there in Miami either. They got Hero, Duncan Robinson. Come on,
who's the one we were talking
down.
about? Tyler Johnson. We were talking about a couple weeks ago. Remember that one with the big contract?
That was the great contract.
That was not a great contract. Absolutely. But look, there's a lot of guys on the board now. Don't connect. Isaiah Collier, McCain, the point guard from Duke. Tristan De Silva, who we dedicated a lot of time to over the past.
And he'd be a plug-and-play guy for them, too, so I wouldn't be shocked at him either.
So there's some names there that are sitting on the board for the Philadelphia 76ers. So, folks, we did ask you on Twitter, but so many people are just throwing things in here. I probably missed it, as I did ask on the chat, here on YouTube, or our live stream here, who you guys want. Guys, gals, everybody. There are a lot of names there, and some pretty good ones that are falling outside of Connect. Buck Carrington going, Derek, McCain, De Silva, and Collier sitting there. Would you be disappointed in any of them?
McCain a little bit, just because I really question defensive fit. I like the fact that he might be the second best jump shooter, top 3 jump shooter in this class. So I like that. I'm just not sure the defense is really going to work next to Maxey. I would talk myself into it because shooting is one of those skill sets I value at a very high level, but I have very significant concerns. So he would be the one that I'd be a little bit disappointed by.
I want to save some thoughts for when they actually make this pick, so we don't use all our bullets before it's actually time to talk about the guy the Sixers drafted, even if it is someone that they're going to turn and trade.
You've already written about him, talked about him, and all of that. So a lot of good stuff.
Oh, hey! We have to spoil it now.
Have at it.
Jared McCain to Miami.
We just talked about him.
Dalton Connect is there. I think they should be on the phone saying, hey, whenever Miami's done, bring the white boy to Philly. It just makes too much sense.
Get him number 17.
Are you disappointed that they went McCain since you said they're going to ruin it for them?
Well, hey, look, maybe Miami.
The
Sixers picking behind Miami might be a good thing for them, where they can. Now, I will say, giving Dalton Connect the pressure to live up to the Tyrese Maxey pick is a little much, but just turning into or a rotation level player would be nice as well.
It just simply makes sense here that they need that right now. It looks like they should go there.
And they just need volume shooting that can stay on the floor in the worst way. The worst way.
Yes. So, all right, McCain.
Derek, where would you say among the lottery picks Connect ranks in terms of like being able to play right away? It's got to be pretty high, right?
I mean, it's got to be top 5.
Yeah.
Why is he falling?
That's teams have to be concerned about the defensive stuff, right?
Sure.
Because I have not heard anything from a character, work ethic, any of that type of deal. So
And
it's
at
not
this
one
point,
of
it can't
those.
be the age either because we're in the mid-teens.
No, and that, to your point, we would have known a long time ago that
like 9.
Yeah. It's got to be the defensive stuff, right?
For all the guys that we have not talked about, this is perfect, though, Kyle, to your point, because we haven't talked about them. Yeah.
Amazing.
Has to be the defensive stuff.
Oh,
actually,
wait, no.
Hold on.
It's a dispute.
Dispute. We got a beef.
But it's not Dalton Connect.
We got a beef. Right. Exactly.
Oh, okay.
The greatest rivalry in sports.
Okay, so Jake Fisher had reported Jared McCain at 15. Shams is reporting Khalil Ware at 15. Devon's guy. One of Devon's guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, either way,
that's not
I'll be honest.
either one of them.
I didn't like
I
Ware,
wasn't
so that's
drafting.
perfect.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to draft either one of them. So
But to your point, I know you didn't like Ware a lot, Kyle, but the situation when we talk about Heat culture and all of that, and a backup role behind Bam Adebayo, right? Yeah, that's not a bad spot if it is that spot.
The pick is Ware. Fisher just apologized for an erroneous report. So
it's not a bad spot for a guy that we talked about with the motors issues.
No, Bam just signed that extension.
Bam signed the extension. A guy who may not always be locked into the game. You can't do that down there. And so whatever conversations they may have had, any meetings they may have had with him, they saw enough where maybe they can get past that and bring him into their situation as a backup young guy behind Bam.
No, I will say this about it seems like the likely guys are McCain or Connect here, right? I think the good thing, I'm higher on Connect than McCain. The good thing about both these guys, each of them has a bankable skill that will translate presumably right away. So regardless of who they go here, it seems like they should be able to get a guy who can help immediately. Even though McCain is much younger, I do think because the shot is something that I think is a done deal, you can get something from him right away. But I would lean Connect pretty heavily.
We always talk about ball handling, which they lacked. You needed Kyle Lowry to play the amount of minutes that you needed because not only just the experience and the lack of players, but they didn't have anybody who can handle the basketball. So that's a good guy there. So
I wonder if, Kyle, you would know this more than I do. To the Sixers, they probably did more work on McCain, right? I know they didn't bring a lot of people in for workout. Now, that's not to say that Daryl Morey won't just take the guy who slides, right? That's exactly what happened with Tyrese Maxey a few years ago. But, I think McCain was somebody he was the popular mock draft pick for the Sixers for a long time.
If you look through Daryl's draft history, he likes to take guys who are falling.
Yeah.
Like, he does that pretty regularly.
Sure.
And to Rich's point, I know Jonathan Gavoni at ESPN has pointed out the Sixers have worked out as few people as anybody in the league. Daryl Morey, as a rule, doesn't really believe in the value of workouts in general. I think this is the production that's on tape, and this is what we care about. It's not, can you make a bunch of shots in an empty gym? Doesn't value that as highly. He said that publicly. And so if he thinks Connect is the top guy on the board, I think he'll take him. I think it's that simple. I'm not sure they're keeping this pick, but let's find out, everybody.
We will see.
all right, so as we await the Sixers pick at pick number 16, and we find out what happens there. To the guys' point, also with the lack of conversation of the workouts, they were at the combine. Maybe they had a conversation there and seeing some stuff there that they may have liked. May have been on the board too high where he wouldn't work out for them anyway because probably thought he was going to be a top 10 pick, maybe a lottery pick in general, not falling that far to the Sixers.
He was just tossing up bricks in Utah and Memphis.
Maybe he was. Yeah, and now it's here. So with Khalil Ware officially going to the Miami Heat, Derek, start with you. Who do they pick, or do they trade the pick now that we are here at 16?
We'll know in about 2 minutes. Look, it's hard to say. If they're going to make a big trade, and we went through a lot of the options, the big name options that they could have pursued this summer. A lot of them are committed elsewhere, whether that's OG and the signing being announced, or whether that's Paul George and the expectation he will play on the West Coast, or LeBron staying in LA. They don't have very many options, and Ingram is one of the few that's on the board. So if they have a trade lined up, the 16 pick could very well be involved with it. But someone like Connect falling to them where he has a chance to step in and maybe contribute in a role that they need right off the bat at a low salary slot, and being old enough and experienced enough to contribute at that low salary spot. If you can hit on a contributor, it doesn't have to be a star. If you can hit on a contributor on a cost-controlled contract like this, that is a great value. That would be a great value.
All right, Richard.
Could the Pelicans need a shooter, though?
Could.
It took Jordan Hawkins last year.
Yeah.
But Trey Murphy is a shooter, too. So
he's a shooter. Yeah.
Still have C.J. McCollum on the roster, a shooter. So they have some stuff there. If they keep it, your thoughts on one that now that we are here?
Well, I mean, I think you have McCain available. You have Collier, two guys who I think before the draft we thought were going to be in this range. I would say Connect. I just think that's a ready-made skill set that works with this Sixers core. This very small Sixers core of basically two guys, but I think he would be a decent addition.
Kyle?
I'm working on it.
You keep working. I would go Connect in this spot. That's what I would like for them to see. They're not trading down. They're not trading the pick outright at all. I'm in agreement with you guys. I would go Dalton Connect. You need shooting, and add that a guy that can put the ball on the floor, a guy that can shoot. He has question marks, but as many people that we've talked about.
This is not confirmed. It might be Collier here. So
okay. And we've talked a lot about him. We talked a lot about him also. But for the Connect piece, he does a lot of good things. And four guys on the roster, they don't have anybody on the roster that does what he does.
No.
So, yes.
No, they don't. And Collier, I think, would make sense. It's kind of a big, a big swing. I would take Connect right now. Mm-hmm. That would be what I would do. Yeah. But, if you told me heading into the draft that they took Collier, I would say, okay, that's not too bad.
Well, I do think Connect is more ready to play.
Me too.
And like I said, if you're going to keep this draft pick and roster a $4 million contract, I think getting someone who can play early would be the best justification for it.
And maybe they look at him and say that he can play early. So in Collier, and when we had our predictions the other day, I did go with Collier as they stick at 16 and select him. So if he is the guy, decent size, guy that can maybe play next to Maxey, he has to improve his defense. But when we talk offense, the spacing in today's game might help him out tremendously instead of playing for USC out there in the Pac-12.
Yep. Look, he was considered basically the top pick heading into the season. Had a little bit of a rocky year. Like USC had a bunch of young guys. They didn't fit together. As the season went along, Kyle mentioned, he started to guard. He started to play a little bit better, dealt with some injuries. I think that is a reasonable pick here. I just didn't know Connect was going to be available,
Right.
That's why this is just complete chaos, it seems like, right now. This is one of the few in the last 4 or 5 picks where it wasn't bam, done.
They didn't expect Connect to be there, maybe.
I think my read on it is they're entertaining, hey, does somebody want to move up for whether it's Connect or one of these other guys?
All right, it's PHLY Sixers NBA Draft Show live at Garage North in Fishtown. Great atmosphere. You can hear all the people here hanging out with us on a Wednesday night. Nonetheless, right? On the Wednesday night. Presented by Coors Light. This is packed. We have $5 Coors Light Pounders. $5 Coors Banquets down the other end. We have all of that here with you. Great food, great atmosphere. Everybody's patiently waiting to find out what the Philadelphia 76ers do here with the 16th overall pick. The Miami Heat went with Khalil Ware, the center from Indiana, at pick number 15, leaving on the board.
Real flair for the dramatic over here.
Really good names.
Collier will be anticlimactic. With this long of a wait, it feels like something crazy's got to happen, right? I mean, they could just be waiting and dragging it out because of TV, too, It's clearly what's happening here. But yeah, just going with Collier.
Sean says McCain.
Who? Huh?
Sham says McCain.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
All right.
After all that. It's the guy that got mocked to them 700 times.
A lot.
And probably the least exciting option out of all the. This connect fall is absolutely baffling to me.
It's stunning.
What did he get medically right flagged and we don't know about it?
You know what's going to happen. New York now has, what they have, 24 and 25 that they didn't trade their move up.
Yeah, they might trade up to go get him,
right? All right, your thoughts, Kyle. If this is,
I'm trying to figure this because
you figure it out.
Something is like not.
You figured out.
Something is not adding up.
These guys have figured out. Unless you and I talk. We've done this before.
We have done this before. Jared McCain, you're right. Not as exciting, right? I think his shooting obviously is a great fit with this roster. I mean, like, can shoot it from deep, shoot it off the dribble a little bit. A little worried about him being able to get by people, though.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're
besides being short, he's not a tremendous athlete.
that's a tough sell. You know, like you would rather the shooter, the floor spacer, be taller. You know, maybe he could grow into that kind of Seth Curry role. I know he played for Duke, so I'm just thinking about that too. A little bit of ball handling, a little bit of shooting. Not as exciting, but obviously somebody who they've done a lot of work on, somebody who I believe worked out for them, one of the few people who did. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, like I would rather take a swing on Connect at that point. I think I'd rather take a swing on Collier too, just because I think
I would have too.
Yeah. But who knows? I don't. You know. What do you think?
We're gonna have to wait and see if this is
taking forever. By the way, too.
It is confirmed. McCain is the pick.
Okay.
It's very uninspiring to me, mostly because I do think the shooting is bankable, right? I do think he's gonna come in, shoot high 30s, maybe low 40s from three. He's a good relocator, smart. I think I give him a pretty good amount of credit for coming to Duke and immediately buying into that. Like, you're going to be a spot-up guy for a lot of this year. You're not going to run. We're going to play through Filipowski. Yep. We're going to play through other people, and you're going to be asked to be in this heavy off-ball role. Give him credit for that. Now, that being said, I think part of that is that he doesn't have the greatest handle in the world. He's not an advanced passer. He is a below-the-rim player. That's part of why he's gotten comparisons to Seth Curry.
Sure.
He's going to have trouble finishing in the paint. I will say I'm a little higher on him defensively than I thought I would be after going back over the tape. I think he competes. I think he's a good rebounder. Is a really important thing. He's strong despite being 6'2", whatever he is. Forget what the official measurements are. I just think they're not in a position where taking the I don't want to say it's a low upside pick.
It's a low upside pick,
but
I think that's fair.
It's lower upside certainly than some of these other options.
When you're a 6'2" off guard who doesn't really have great burst off the dribble and isn't a great creator, that's a low upside pick.
As you hear the reaction here, live
mixed reaction.
They were clearly not listening to the stream, and that pains me. That pains
It doesn't pain me. I like the live reaction to this. Jared McCain coming from Duke. And, all right, well, listen, they have another guard on their roster.
How long he's on the roster?
How long
we'll
he's
have
on
to
the
wait
roster?
and see.
We'll wait and see. But does come from Los Angeles, from the prep background with a big-time reputation as a good player, certainly to get to Duke and play for that program. But a lot of what you got, I like him a little bit more than most. And the ball handling will certainly have to be worked on. He's a small guy, so he's probably going to have that a lot anyway, where they're going to need somebody to handle the ball anyway. But they see a role for him in this situation where they look at if he's here, and they needed some more backcourt help. Will that come in free agency? Sure, they'll still do that. But we'll see. We'll see with him.
Look, I don't want to get too down because I think there are things to like about him.
Sure.
The shooting, clearly. The off-ball catch-and-shoot game is something the Sixers need. Kyle brought it up. The compete level is there. Everyone you talk to thinks this is a great kid. He's going to work hard. He's going to buy in. It's just there's a limitation as I'm not even sure he's really a secondary creator at this stage. With below the rim, not great burst, and 6'2" with a 6'3" wingspan. It's not really his fault. It's just there is a limitation physically. And I do worry a little bit. You can compete all you want. You still, you're defending. The Sixers need to find a way to stop Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and even OG and Bridges. These are big wings in the East. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough.
It's always good when I already have a profile written about the guy that was drafted, so I don't have to do extra work afterward. My biggest problem with the pick, and Derek is getting at it with what he just said, I think he needs to play next to a jumbo playmaker.
Yeah.
Like, he needs to have, whether it's James Harden, whether it's a point forward, the guy who's creating, the guy who's getting downhill needs to be a bigger guy to balance out. Like, for Tyrese Maxey, what I want for him is to tap into the on-ball and the off-ball talent, right? Tyrese succeeded in a big way with James Harden because James could be the pick-and-roll partner for Joel, and then Tyrese gets to be on the weak side. I don't see Jared McCain as a guy who can leverage his handle, who has a good enough first step to consistently get by guys and get into those advantage situations where then Tyrese Maxey on the weak side is able to be, a 40 to 45% catch and shoot type guy. So I'm skeptical on that. I do think, as a guy who's going to play as, let's say he runs the point in the Maxey-less minutes, right? You use him as the reserve guard, the table setter there, where you don't care as much about that because a lot of your offense is just, hey, Joel, we're throwing you the ball, and that's all that really matters, right? Like, play with the ball in his hands, post up, 4 out, everyone plays off of him. His relocation skills, his spot-up skills, that will be really valuable in that context. I just don't know that I see a path to him being a starter or a closer as long as Tyrese Maxey is on this team.
Offensively, and look, the Sixers need more creation. They still need more creation. But when you're going to run a lot of your offense through Embiid and Maxey, you need elite spot-up shooters too, and elite off-ball shooters as well. I think he can be that. It's just, can he defend at a high enough level to really matter in the playoffs, and for Nick Nurse to trust him in lineups for as long as you would want for this pick? I don't know. I don't know.
And to Kyle's point about the size too, like, Redick and Curry, part of the reason they succeeded here was that Ben Simmons was the point guard.
Yes,
Ben
and he
Simmons
was
took
huge.
a million other things off the table, but he allowed you to have kind of those smaller one-position defenders, weaker defenders that would get hunted, because he could basically guard anybody basically 1 to 4 at that point. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about that. Let me ask you guys a question though. If he succeeds, like what happens? Is the shot just so overwhelming that, the lack of burst, the lack of kind of shake, does that just become less of a problem because teams have to close out on him?
Well, if he succeeds, it's because they finally got a guy who's willing to just launch the ball whenever he gets it, and Embiid creates double teams every time down the floor. Like, that's the path to success.
So here's my thing. If he succeeds, it's because a couple of things. Number one is the shot. That's easy, right? If he can make it at that percentage that you guys are talking about, that'll work out. Then you go to number 2. If we're talking about him being a competitor and a hard worker, what's to say he's not going to do all of that stuff that's going to translate when he gets to the NBA and does all of those things? Many times we hear about players are getting better because they do the things that they do year after year to improve and get better. He can't change his height. The shot is already there, so he can't change his height. He can't change any of those things. All he can do is continue to get better at the things that he needs to improve on. And if he is going to be a hard worker, and if they believe that he's going to work with their program and their developmental coaches to improve the basketball team, I've seen stuff that I've liked already, and those things are correctable. He cannot change the height, but the other things are fixable. You can angles. The speed is not there. You learn the angles at a better spot when you get to the NBA, maybe with some more size. Things like that. That's where I think that if it does work, it works in that way. Do I see it as a starter? No, not next to Maxey. I agree with you 100% on all of that. Again, cannot change that. None of us want that. But if he's going to play minutes for this basketball team, those other things has to happen, and he has to be a plus backup at either of those guard positions with size. Come on the floor with whoever he's out there. If Embiid is out there, easy. But if it's the other players, Kelly Oubre's size, Nick Batum's size, and maybe somebody else bigger next to him in the backcourt, then that will absolutely work out and work out for him and get it done for him. So that's the thing for me.
No, it's funny that we're talking about McCain and Connect and their defensive struggles.
Connect to the Lakers, by the way. I don't know if anybody saw.
When they're completely different. Like, Connect has the size. McCain, he will be in the right spot. You can teach him, you can coach him. He will understand your schemes. It's just when Jaylen Brown's rising up and shooting over you, it doesn't matter if he's in the right spot because you're not going to contest that shot.
Yeah, but again, that's why he's on the floor with others, and you hope with the players that he's out there.
Playing 40 minutes per night, like it's hard to avoid that.
Well, but if he's not that good to be out there with Maxey in those spots like that, he's not going to be.
And I will say this too, while we're on the subject of the instincts and playing the angles, things like that. I do think he's going to be limited as a playmaker because the handle will hold him back. If you're asking me about the quick decision making, seeing things over the top, making an outlet pass, making those 0.5 type of decisions in the half court where he's got a decent look, but he can find a better one. I think he's shown that he is a great reader of the game in that way and might help you create open threes in that type of post-up, face-up, Joel Embiid-centric world. So I think that's definitely a positive. I agree with have heard great things about the work ethic, the intelligence, all that. You hope that carries him moving forward. You hope that plays with a bit of a chip on his shoulder is what we've already seen, right? Like he's 6'2", and battling with guys much bigger for rebounds, like getting into people's chests, going and getting the ball. And the 1-2 is there. I know I talked to some scouts that said end of the season, they thought there was marked improvement from him on the defensive end in terms of the reads, in terms of just like the overall success rate that he had there. So he's done what he can. It's just like you can't, to your point, I'll say the other version of it. You can't change your height. And so there will just be times he's going to get picked on, or he's going to, and there will be nothing he can do about that. And so my concern is that
if
it's
he's
a
on
limiting
Jalen Brunson gave Tyrese Maxey some fits. Maxey had his moments, and of course he gave Maxey some fits, and Maxey's a bigger body already. Get bigger and all that. But to your point, now if he's going to be out there against Jalen Brunson, you're absolutely right. He's going to put him on the block, and he's going to punish him. He's going to get him in foul trouble, and then they're going to have to pull him off the floor.
And then the difference for me, if you compare him to like a Rob Dillingham, who I was higher on if he had ended up falling into this range, I view Dillingham as a real on-ball shot creator, a guy who can go get his and get by people.
Absolutely.
Because he's got a better handle and better physical tools that McCain just doesn't have. He's not. McCain's slightly bigger, right? A little bit taller, a little bit heavier, so that makes you feel a little bit better. But I just don't think he has the blow-by speed or the handle to consistently get past people. And he's going to have to be an under-the-rim finisher for his entire career. That is a tough way to make a living if you can't create separation.
Well, we talked about him the other day. We were talking about, and I threw the comparison of, what if we were talking Duke guy, and I brought up Tyus Jones, and we said, remember?
I thought you were going Seth.
No, we were talking Tyus
He's
Jones.
gotten a lot of Seth comparisons.
Sure. But I remember asking you guys about what if he's Tyus Jones, like coming into, of course, the guy that we all liked, and certainly you liked him as a trade candidate at the deadline last February. We mentioned that, hey, if he has a Tyus Jones career, that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, to me, like, they did not go for fit really at all here. I understand that the general idea of they need quick decision makers, they need shooting off the ball. Yeah. But, like, you had a guy who is taller and I think is probably more proven at the off-ball aspects of shooting that the Lakers took one pick after. And they said no. Like, they clearly must think that there is some untapped potential in this kid, because I don't really see the justification for taking him otherwise. Like, there has to be something more that they see in him than just like he's an off-ball spacer. He could be a relocation
somebody
shooter.
really likes him that they want to trade him
That's
to.
true. That's true. That could be
the other
the
part
better
that we have to figure out here. Because Connect being on the board was just not really on the radar for us. And so if they had taken it, it's very hard to.
I don't understand that. Yeah, if they're not moving it and the Connect goes to the Lakers a pick after, I mean, yeah, that one might sting if he works out. That one might sting. Orlando at pick 18 selects Tristan De Silva. We talked a lot about him from Colorado. Another lengthy player that Orlando likes for a fit with what they have. But
I like McCain more than him. I'll say that.
Okay. All right, fair. A lot of people in the chat don't like the McCain pick as we go
It really
through
is a shame because I do feel like he's one of those guys that I would like a lot more if it wasn't on the Sixers.
Yeah.
And specifically it wasn't next to Tyrese Maxey. If we're being real, because he's a real good fit next to Joel Embiid, it's the Maxey part that I'm just not sure if he can grow into playing a 25, 30, 35-minute per game role. I'm just not sure I see it.
By the way, this might be my least favorite Tristan da Silva fit in the entire league. He is a guy who needs everything creative for him on a team that is in desperate need of people who can create for other people. It's like an absolute disaster. He's fine. I don't think he's going to wash out because he went to Orlando. But it's just another guy who's like all their other guys, but worse.
Well, it's like when you talk about fit. That's their fit. They like
those guys.
With them length, right? Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's the pick as of now for the Philadelphia 76ers. Jared McCain from Duke. Good player. Underwhelming for a lot of what we're seeing here. Slacker Joe says McCain equals campaign, question mark. Dev Miliano, I don't hate McCain. He just gives backup point guard vibes.
Well, but he's not. He's not a point guard.
He's an undersized shooting guard is what he is.
I guess the issue that Jared McCain is running into with the fan base, I would say even with us kind of and how we're evaluating it.
Yeah.
We're on 2 straight off seasons of just eating shit, man. Like it's not, even if it's the right thing to do, it's not exciting.
Somebody get Rich another Coors Light.
It's not exciting. Last year, choose chill. It's seriously it's 2 years of just bad news, and now maybe that changes. Maybe they make this trade. Maybe Paul George changes his mind and says he's going to sign here. But there's just not a lot to get excited about these guys. So for them to pick, kind of a low ceiling player, at least it seems like it at this point, it's just the cherry on top of it. So also, I get the frustration.
I think with Connect falling,
yes,
and so many people being like, well, this guy was supposed to be top 10. Just take him. Just do it. And not taking the low-hanging fruit, it's like, why? That's going to be the reaction. Whether it's fair or not, that's going to be the reaction.
Whether it worked or not, people want to high-five each other after that pick, right? And they're not high-fiving each other after that pick.
Take the good PR move.
Yeah. That's what we're advocating for. Don't pick the best player. Just buy yourself a little bit of good PR for a few days. No, but we'll see what happens. But to me, there's just a pattern here, and unfortunately for Jared McCain, he's part of it right now.
Yeah. Seems like a good kid.
Just a fit.
Maybe he's great, too. I don't know.
If we want to go real far down the negativity wormhole, what if he's just Jared Bayless? It's not that different size-wise. Came into the league with
I need a Coors Light now. After that one, I need a freaking Coors Light.
What are you talking about?
I have to drive in a minute, so trying to be good.
You can't have one beer?
Come on.
Be under the legal limit. What are you talking about?
Well, what if he's Jared Bayless? Jared Bayless, where did he begin? Was it Memphis? Jared Bayless started in Memphis?
Jared Bayless was very unhappy during his Philadelphia tenure.
I think he was just unhappy in general. He didn't seem like a very pleasant guy.
It sounds like there were. No, I'm not saying he was.
He was a fun
guy.
He was a fun talker. He was a fun talker when you got him going.
Yeah. You had a different relationship with him than we did.
I got him going a couple of times.
Okay.
We had some fun conversations. Yeah, we had some fun conversations. But yeah, this one seems. I'm getting Brand is sold on McCain, Money Mar. If Brand is sold on him, then I have to trust and ride it with the McCain pick. Elton Brand giving his 2 cents in this one.
I will say this. Every person who's like plugged in scout-wise raves about the work ethic stuff. The last time the Sixers, I'm not saying he's going to have a Maxey outcome, but part of the reason that you loved Maxey as a pick there was that you heard the exact same things, that tireless worker is going to get the most out of his skill set, will grow his skill set over time. So as people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, I just want to, let's rein it in.
But Maxey was a guy with elite speed and quickness who needed the jumper. You can improve a jumper.
I'm not saying he's Maxey.
You can improve a jumper with work and repetition. You can't, like, my arms aren't going to get longer. That's just not how it works.
6'2" backcourt not doing it for you? All right, I get it. But yeah, even reaching out to some, I'm getting the same Same thing you guys are saying. Great in high school, great in college, good in college. Just not a good fit for the Sixers in terms of what they do.
It's a fit in terms of, look, we talked about Reed Shepherd, right, at 3 and how people value shooting. I think McCain is one of the absolute locks to shoot in the league. And the Sixers have ignored shooting in the past, so not ignored it, but they have not emphasized it as much as people hoped.
Well, but part of the problem is when they have got shooters, they have other completely debilitating weaknesses, like Seth Curry, who couldn't play in the second round against the Atlanta Hawks.
Well, sorry, I was trying to have a positive 30 seconds there, Derek. I'll never do it again.
But I know that, part of what you brought up is true. There was a guy with a similar skill set who was just taller. And again, the compete level isn't the same. Connect is not anywhere near as competitive of a defender. He doesn't try as hard. He's not as locked in. His recognition and reads aren't as good. But at least he has the physical size to do that.
All right. Well, at pick number 19, we got the Toronto Raptors coming up as well. See what happens with Toronto Raptors at pick 19. And they need help. But Sturdy said McCain can impact now. In the chat, Philadelphia might eat up this happy-go-lucky kid. Just the city in general. Jamar Sturdy saying he's a great shooter and an excellent passer. Coming in, the passing has not been one of the things that the guys have talked about being one of the strengths. Good passer, not an excellent
so
passer.
I think he was good in the way he needed to be in college. As I said earlier, I think the concern is if he can't get by people, his passing is limited to hitting guys over the top from a standstill, swing passing, and things like that, where you have guys like Collier, who he's got his own set of issues. Don't get me wrong. If we would be sitting here saying he might not shoot and everything might come unraveled for him, but that's a guy who can get downhill and throw whip passes to either corner, where McCain can't penetrate that first level of defense to even get there on a consistent basis. That's a real problem.
I always compare passing to, remember when Madden they had the passing cone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? And I always thought basketball...
The anti-Michael Vick feature?
Well, yeah, which was unfair to Michael Vick, by the way. But, he was so dominant in the game a few years before. But in general, though, the passing cone for Isaiah Collier out on a basketball floor is really wide because he creates advantages, right? He finds kind of wider lanes to throw passes. I'm not sure Jared McCain will be able to get advantages, right? I think he can probably see the floor pretty well. He's probably a pretty accurate passer. But can he get by enough people to make some of those advanced reads? And I think at Duke, we didn't really see that. So that's the concern.
All right, let's look at the Nick Nurse part 2. He's in on these conversations for this pick. And Nick Nurse typically doesn't like to play young players. At least that's what we've seen some over there in Toronto. This is a guy, how do you see him fitting into a Nick Nurse situation, Derek? And we talk about the offense, we talk about the players specifically, and of course, in Tyrese Maxey, the main part here. But in a Nick Nurse system, from watching Nick Nurse for a year here, seeing him in Toronto over the years, he was a part of these conversations.
Yeah, and look, Nick Nurse obviously built a reputation defensively of having long switchable forwards. The Sixers have none of them on the roster right now. Go get him, Rick. We'll leave him in there. But this is very much not in that sort of style. But I also think Nick Nurse, from his probably pre-Toronto days, really values shooting and ball movement and quick decision making. So I think this is one kind of player who could work in a hypothetical Nick Nurse system, at least offensively. Defensively is where pretty much every concern is going to come from them.
He did play Fred VanVleet, smaller guy.
But Fred VanVleet was a really good defender. And perhaps just as importantly, there was only one Fred VanVleet on that roster. Everyone else was big and had size and could switch. It's not so much that he is short, it's that he's short next to Maxey, which is really where my concern comes in. Mm-hmm. And also, what's Fred's wingspan? First of all, he's strong,
stocky,
and I think he can probably defend up a little better.
He did play with Lowry. They did play those double guard backcourts.
Lowry's got some size to him in different ways.
Junk in the trunk, I would say.
Yeah. Got a big old caboose. You can say it.
And it's like a 6-time All-Star too.
Also, if you can get me Kawhi, that's great. I'll change my tune.
Could have traded Ben Simmons for him. That would have helped. No, he would have left after a year, so it would have been a moot point. But
In the Nurse system, just your thoughts.
yeah, I don't think he's a Nick Nurse guy defensively. Well, so I would say this. In terms of physical profiles, the type that wants to be able to switch and do different things, throw exotic looks at teams, not that guy. He is very smart, has a good reputation for his game intelligence. I think that shows up. So I do think he's a guy that Nick Nurse says, hey, we're going to do some goofy stuff like play a box and one, play a press. I think he'll be able to pick concepts up quickly, adjust on the fly. He's good in that way. That's very helpful. I think Nick Nurse will love on offense that not just that he's a shooter, I think he has good instincts for, all right, this guy's doubled here, or this guy drives here. I need to slide into this spot. I need to be here in order to provide the best outlet to Tyrese Maxey as a driver, to Joel Embiid as a post-up guy. Not every guy who can shoot, especially not every 19-year-old who can shoot, comes into the league with that type of feel for where they need to be on offense off the ball. So that stuff that's really good, and that will help him get on the floor right away. I also think he will compete on defense. Like, I agree with Derek. Derek said there's only so far compete can take you, and in the playoffs and in matchups with teams like Boston, teams like now New York that have the big wings, even the Jalen Brunsons of the world, there will be times when he's just drawing down. But I think if you're asking me, do I see a guy who's going to get hit by a screen and keep going? I think that's Jared McCain. Do I see a guy who wants to take the challenge, who's not going to back down from, hey, I see a high-level guard on the other team, I want to impact the game and try to stop that guy? I think you see the want-to in him, and I think the rebounding is an extension of that. So I think like all this stuff that to me is like basketball character, that shows up for him. And that's good. Like, he has a bankable skill. He's got good basketball intelligence and character. And on a broader level, those are the guys you want to bet on at the organizational level. It's just that I don't love the fit with Maxey specifically.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing holding me back.
90%, yep.
If you had James Harden, if you had a point forward, like obviously it doesn't have to be James Harden, but if you had a guy in that mold, even if you had like a Jalen Williams in Oklahoma City, not as good of a playmaker, but somebody who can be your big shot creator, and McCain can kind of lurk off the ball and do more of that stuff, I would feel a lot better about it. It's all down to the fit.
Rich, Jay Billis on Twitter, I'm guessing he's not doing the television broadcast for ESPN, says some things. Now, mind you, he's a Duke guy, but we've always seen him when at least for me, I thought he's always been honest with his assessment of players. He says the Sixers got a winner, a leader, and one of the best shooters in the entire draft class with Jared McCain.
Well, and like Kyle mentioned earlier, one of the big things with Max, obviously he's really talented, he's really fast, all that stuff. But one of the things that people said heading into that draft was that his character was off the charts, that he was a great kid. And, just watching him over these last 4 years, like, I remember Doc Rivers always, he always made it a point to say, like, we have told him you are not allowed in the gym today, right? And that's part of the reason he has ascended to the heights of being a max level player, right? Now, he probably would have been a pretty darn good player anyway, but you can tell that he loves playing basketball and he loves working at his craft. So if this kid is built in a similar way, that's a good start, right? And I understand that, a lot of draft work is, character work, right?
Yes.
You talk to, the managers on the team. You talk to the equipment guys. You talk to assistant coaches and kind of people who deal with them behind the scenes and try to figure out what type of person. So that's a good thing. I would say one other thing with Nick Nurse too. The Sixers at the beginning of last season did an amazing job, I think, offensively when Joel was just spraying the ball all over the place, right? Balls moving, body movement, all that stuff. I think if this kid is this smart of a basketball player and they're going to try and get back to that a little bit. Now, I do think that system has its weaknesses come playoff time, right? In playoff time, sometimes you just got to get a bucket, and sometimes the other team's going to hunt your weakest defender, which, by the way, Jared McCain is you. Probably. So that's going to be an issue. But in terms of like the regular season and fitting into a culture and the style of play, I can see how like the Sixers wouldn't need insane on ball creation. They just need a guy who knows how to play, and as I think Kyle and Derek said earlier too, a guy that is just willing to just fire threes right away. Joel Embiid loves guys who just jack up threes, right? Like,
you're not going to have to ask this kid to take threes.
Right? And that's the thing. Joel, like, looking at the stat sheet, telling Tyrese Maxey, hey, man, you should be taking 10 a game at some point in your career. Why are you not shooting anything? So, if he is built along those lines, you can see some fit for the Sixers. Now, that's not to take away from the lack of creation, the defensive challenges he's going to present, because guess what? If that guy plays in a playoff game, he's going to get hunted a million times. Like, you said Jalen Brunson, they play the Knicks, hey, Jared McCain, come on up, you know? It's going to be that type of thing. But, you know, in terms of the positive attributes, I can see how he would fit into what the Sixers, or they want to do in the regular season, at least.
Interesting, man. This is this is fun. Your guy, Kyle, going to Cleveland. Guy we talked about a little bit. Well, at the end of the draft, when you had to pick, you picked Jalen Tyson in our mock draft.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
I'm not so sure that's the case.
No, I thought you did.
I thought I took a white guy for Utah at the end of the draft.
You took the kid from
Johnny
Kansas.
Purphy.
Yeah, Purphy from Kansas.
Who looks like he's like 12 years old, honestly.
He really does.
Looks like he can shoot the heck out of the ball, but
yeah,
I have my concerns.
Yep. So, and Woj is making it official, by the way, that Cleveland and Kenny Atkinson are agreeing on a 5-year deal, Derek. So they have their coach for a 5-year deal. Let go of that Charlotte job a couple of years ago that some people forget about, and landed in a better spot here with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I guess he's getting that job with the belief, too, that Donovan Mitchell's going to stay in Cleveland. So there's that.
One more name that I thought of when I heard of Jared McCain. Now, I have not watched him probably quite as much as you guys have. Any similarities to Landry Shamet coming out of college?
I think Landry was a more proven movement guy. It's not to say that McCain is not. I don't think I watched enough to get a real feel on this, but he felt more like a relocation spot up rather than
pure running off screen.
Yeah. So like if you compare him to somebody like a Jacoby Walter, right? Jacoby Walter, someone I think will be a movement shooter, and his percentages reflect that, right? Like he was only 34, 35% at Baylor, and so there were concerns about, okay, is his shooting actually as good as advertised and whatnot? And so what kind of shot diversity do you get from McCain? I think that's a fair question to consider as we look at, like, all right, how does he impact the team? You're not going to have him flying around screens and running the full JJ package. I do think it's probably closer to something like Seth Curry.
Yeah.
Right away. But it's not a bad question. I don't remember seeing on tape as much of that hard sprint, coming around to a pin down, coming around multiple screens, rising into a shot. But I would say this, the mechanics are consistent, they're clean, they're simple. So if he works on that, maybe he becomes a movement shooter eventually. It's just not something I've seen yet.
No, that's what we thought. I mean, when Landry got drafted, we called him JJ Jr., right?
Yeah.
Like he's just going to follow him and try and figure out how to become a pro. But I don't know, just the slight frame. I think Landry's a little taller than him, but in general, the same defensive concerns reminded me a little bit. And Landry, like, look, he got on the floor early in his career, right? He played at least regular season games for that team before he got moved at the end of in the middle of the year.
Who did he get moved for?
Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris.
Is that a good move?
Oh, man. Well, a lot more. That's the start of the offseason for the Philadelphia 76ers. Not that we're going anywhere. Again, we're broadcasting live here for our PHLY Sixers NBA Draft Show live at the Garage North in Fishtown. Sixers crew here breaking down everything presented by Coors Light. And the Coors Light Pounders for $5. The Coors Banquets for $5 all night here. The Pelicans are now on the clock at pick number 21. And a lot has been discussed around them with maybe the Sixers putting their focus that way for Brandon Ingram. Yves Maxey is the guy
that the Sixers worked out, according to Keith Pompey. I believe reported that last week, 2 weeks ago, something sometime recently. Not mentioning that for any particular reason, but just something to keep in the back of your mind.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That could be something. If he stays there, though, Jonas Valanciunas out the door.
Yeah.
Larry Nance is a player on their roster. Other than that, they don't have a lot of size in terms of the five there for them next to Zion.
I think the tough thing for the Pelicans is that they have a different version of the Joel problem, where clearly you have to build around Zion, but Zion is hurt fairly often. And then on top of that, at least Joel, skill set wise, he can do just about anything. He fits with everybody. Zion is a guy that you want to be able to play some small ball.
Yep.
But you don't quite have enough rim protection to go to him in that kind of lineup full time. You want to protect his body, obviously. So they need bigs, but what kind of big you get with them? I'm not in love with the Maxey fit for them, because I think they need more floor spacers. And whatever you think about, I like Maxey on a general level, right? I think he's got rim running potential.
Yep.
Plays really hard, shot blocker. He's got all the young big flaws where he fouls too much, right? Like, that's a problem. But all his issues are over-aggression. I'll live with that. I don't know how well he fits on a team that needs to open the floor up for their best player. And frankly, their current two best players in Zion and Brandon Ingram. So I'm raising an eyebrow at that pick for multiple reasons.
Yes,
I'd say that.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm starting to see some pretty good ones here on the chat now about McCain. First, I'm seeing Mike Burton say McCain is a baller. Good pick. Good pick there for the Sixers. Let's see what else. Remo K, our good buddy. If the biggest complaint is his height, then I'm good with the pick.
Height, unfortunately, in a sport that's played 10 feet in the air is kind of important, I would say. I understand the logic, but yeah.
Brian N., if McCain was a 6'2", he wouldn't have been there at 16.
Sure. But he is.
Prophet 1. Doom and gloom. What's next? Well, the one thing, Prophet, while we may disagree and agree on a lot of things together at one point, there are going to be differences, and we got to be honest of how we feel about a player, a pick, how they perform on the floor. First time we'll get to see him is at Summer League. I can't wait to see him at Summer League because that's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
And here's what I'll say. You have our thoughts. If you just go like 20 minutes before the selection, we talked about which one we would be disappointed in. So when they selected them, it's not like we're bringing out the negatives because we're trying to be doom and gloom. We had opinions. They selected the guy we had concerns about his fit defensively. So now we're going to react to it when they select him.
There is a trade at 22, by the way. Phoenix is making this pick for Denver.
Okay.
Denver is sending pick number 28, number 56 in this draft, plus the Nuggets 2026 and 2031 second-round picks.
So I don't know this, and I didn't see it.
You know who it's for.
Is this for the guy that we've been talking about that they've been pegged to get in Denver at 28?
It's Deron Holmes.
Okay.
Yeah. It was the worst kept secret in the league.
Yep.
His floor was Denver at 28. They clearly got spooked that somebody was going to pick him somewhere in the 22 to 27 range, and they found a willing partner in Phoenix who frankly could have maybe bled them out a little bit more, but 3 second-round picks, I guess, is 3 second-round picks plus the swap of first-round picks is not the worst piece of business for a team that frankly just needs to replenish the asset stockpile as often as they can.
Yep. Okay.
They've been trading swaps upon swaps upon swaps. It's pretty dire in Phoenix.
All right, the first round continues to move along. Just a few more picks before they're done. The Merce and me, Tiramisu, is with us here tonight in the chat. McCain was one of my guys. Just had no idea Connect would be there for the Sixers at pick number 16. So pretty much what we thought. When we kept seeing Dalton Connect slide and just continue to slide, and he's there, Miami passes up, takes Khalil Ware at 15. That's just the one that, hey, we were, you know what? Yeah, don't overthink it. Just take him. And they did not do it.
It's going to be one of those, too, where even if McCain has the better long-term career, I can see it now. Connect playing in LA with LeBron and AD. He's going to get the Lakers fan bump early on. He's going to have a couple big games. Oh my God, he was the steal of the draft. Just like when Kuzma got picked by them.
He's the new Reeves, man. He's the new Reeves.
And everyone will just be miserable because it seemed like the consensus easy pick to make there. And so I'm just warning Jared McCain. Like, I feel bad for him already. He hasn't played a single game, has not signed a contract, has not done anything. And he seems fired up to play here. He sees, again, all the character stuff. I think he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder, hearing any kind of criticism and say, all right, I'll prove you wrong. That's the way you should handle it. I do feel for him that he's going to come into this where I don't think anyone was truly going to be happy with whatever they did here unless they somehow pulled off some kind of miracle draft day trade or whatever it was. But yeah, it's a stacked deck against them right now for sure.
They're going to say, we drafted a guy with a TikTok? Oh, man.
Derek, do you have any thoughts on TikTok and players using it?
Zero concerns of him using TikTok. If he was 6'5", he can have all the TikTok he wants.
Well, they love their social media on the Sixers social media, so he'll be good with that. He would definitely be good with that. What does he have? 3 million TikTok followers, I think they said.
Does he really?
3?
Get a job.
That NIL money isn't what it used to be.
Listen.
All right, well, look, as we we're at 22, the trade that you talked about for the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns, we'll get to that. Milwaukee's 23, 24, 25 for the New York Knicks. Washington again at 26. Then you have Minnesota 27, Denver 28. We'll see about the flip that you talked about. Utah 29, Boston at 30, the world champions. And then we move on to the second round tomorrow.
Did you have to say that? Did you have to remind everybody?
I kind of did.
Can we get like a trigger warning?
It felt like people forgot. That was like the
most anonymous NBA
boring finals
Did it seem
ever.
like it was like 2 weeks ago when it was like last week?
It was.
Yeah.
No Collier yet. It seems like, too, he was getting mocked in the 20s. I'm a little surprised just from everything I watched about him. And the NBA teams know more than we do, obviously, and about his background. And, maybe he doesn't interview well. I don't know what the exact reason is, but I don't know. I feel like that's a guy I would have taken a swing on, at least in the teams.
When you got 2 picks at 24, 25, maybe New York does
could be a
something
Nick,
like that. Yeah.
You want to talk about getting a big fan base bump, too. If he's good in New York, he might as well be fucking Michael Jordan. So.
Yeah, for sure. We still have some time, but just looking at anybody else, Derek is surprised is still on the board, even though it's not for the Sixers. But Isaiah Collier won, but anyone else that may be surprised still on the board.
No, I think Collier is a big surprise. Honestly, I'd have to sit there and go through who is left. I haven't necessarily been following the draft all that much since the Sixers made their selection. But no, Collier being there is definitely a surprise. If there was a real chance we thought he could go even before the Sixers pick, I think most people expected he would be there, but there was a chance he could go. So for him to fall this far is a little bit surprising, yeah.
Yep. Anybody for you, Rich? As you mentioned, Collier. Anybody else outside of Collier? Surprised that they're still available.
That has dropped. I feel like Kyle Filipowski should be on the board.
That was going to be mine.
I actually think he's going to be a pretty decent rotational big. I like his shooting. I like his size. That's somebody. Now, it's not somebody I would have taken if I were the Sixers at their spot. But I don't know. I from what I watched in college, I thought he had a pretty good skill set.
Some buzz out there that Milwaukee may have to part ways with Brook Lopez. Is that a spot for him before they take him? We don't know anything. Kyle Filipowski shooting big. Is that a spot for him potentially? When we always talked about it too, Kyle, when we said if it's going to be somebody, it has to be next to a defensive type of big at the 4 that makes his presence out there on the floor worth it.
Yeah, look, it would work for Filipowski to play next to Giannis. I think the problem is that Milwaukee, their biggest issue last year was defensively, right? Like they went from, they were a buzzsaw two-way team for so many years with Drew Holiday, with Giannis, with Brook Lopez as one of the most important pieces there. If you go from Brook Lopez, even at an advanced age, to Filipowski, who's a drop big that I've said multiple times, he's a drop big because he can't switch, but also is not going to protect the rim. He's not Zach Edey. he's not clinging. He's not a guy who's going to block a ton of shots.
Yeah.
So you'll protect him well there. I think he would be a good rotational option for sure. I don't think he's a guy you want playing heavy minutes, though. I think that feeds into the problem that they already have in Milwaukee.
All right, well, I think I'm going to head out and go over to the Sixers practice facility for Daryl's presser. So it was great to sit here with you fine gentlemen.
We appreciate it. Always appreciate it. We'll see Derek tomorrow at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock tomorrow for the second round as the Sixers currently hold the 41st
To give you guys something
pick.
to watch instead of the presidential debate tomorrow.
Is that what time the second round is tomorrow?
Because of the debate, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Yeah. 4
They're
o'clock.
preempting the battle of the old men.
Derek, we appreciate
But
it.
enough about the Sixers.
Drive safe, my man. We'll see you as Derek parts ways and heads over to Camden for the press conference with Daryl Morey, Nick Nurse, as they do their thing over there.
Another guy, by the way, you were mentioning, not necessarily a faller, because I think he was supposed to be in this range. Shannon from
Shannon
Illinois.
Jr.
Obviously, a big part of the pre-draft process in evaluating him was the off-court stuff, which we're not going to legislate that on a live show here. We did discuss it at length when we brought him up on another show. But I would say he's an interesting name, skill set wise, guy who can produce probably right away. I think of the underclassmen types, Keyshawn George out of Miami.
Yes.
I know he was a surprise one and done guy for a lot of people. Hit a late growth spurt, has some guard skills and a wing 6'6", 6'7" type of body. And so, what happens with him? Maybe he goes in one of these next 3-4 picks here. There's some interesting names. So, I think
we talked about him.
we talked about Kolek. I think you've banged the drum for A.J. Johnson, by the way, to Milwaukee. It seems to be the pick here.
From Australia.
He was a big riser in this process, from what I'd heard. I'll plead innocence to our viewers. I have not watched A.J. Johnson at all, so I can't tell you much of anything about him.
Coached by Jason Tatum's father, by the way, in Australia.
Where was I at? Oh,
Wow.
Yeah.
your guy that you talked about, Ryan Dunn from Virginia. He's an interesting guy, especially
Great
for
athlete, right?
Yes. So I've seen some comps to maybe he could be the Herb Jones of this draft. He's probably the best perimeter defender in the draft.
Yep.
Great athleticism. I think he's got like a 7-foot wingspan as a wing, which is crazy. So you're going to be able to throw him into all kinds of defensive looks and coverages, matchups. I think he's got great off-ball instincts. His problem is he is as non-shooter gets. He gets left completely alone. Teams will not guard him, and they won't guard him, and he will still miss those wide-open threes by a lot. And so that's the gamble. But for a team that needs defense late in the first, do a lot worse than him.
And the one that he's always been pegged to, not being funny, of course, we've seen him pegged to the Knicks. He has stopped his workouts. As you talked about with Holland there, he has stopped his workouts, and a lot of people felt like he got a promise from the Knicks because of the defensive stuff, the Tom Thibodeau university that he may be at 24 or 25. But you add him to what they've added, Kale, then you OG Anunoby, bring him back, and of course Josh Hart. So maybe with 2 picks, that's a place they're willing to go and take a swing on Ryan Dunn in that spot. And they've taken some upperclassmen, drafting them, so they wouldn't be afraid to take a guy, even though he can't shoot, taking an upperclassman, but his defensive presence there with all of them, maybe that's something that they do.
I really don't understand the whole promise thing,
It is strange.
I get it, you don't want, you clearly like a player and you think he's going to interview well or work out well in other places, but the idea that the Sixers told Matisse Thybulle a month before the draft, hey man, just stop working out, we're going to take you. What if a great player had fallen? I don't know. It just seems kind of bizarre to me. It doesn't make sense.
So the Knicks did trade 24 to Washington.
Yes.
Washington.
Breaking news, according to Woj, I would say, I don't know if we can say friend of the show. I'm friendly with Woj. So maybe we say friend of the show, Adrian Wojnarowski, reports that 24. What are the Wizards cooking?
I don't know. Because
What
they have
are
another
they
pick
doing?
in a couple of picks, yes.
They looked at Troy Weaver came on board. They looked at what people are saying is the worst draft in like 11 years. And they're saying, you know what we need? As many first-round picks in that draft as we can get.
Well,
there has to be something else happening.
Well, number one, they're targeting the guy that you just mentioned from Miami, Keyshawn George. So that's one thing. So to your point, what are they trying to do here?
I don't understand what they're building.
We talked about the talent thing of what are they doing earlier with right? And what is Washington doing? And
I don't know what they're doing. I mean, Jordan Poole's still on their team, so they don't know what they're doing.
Kuzma's still on their team too.
Yeah.
So Brogdon, Poole, Kuzma, Keyshawn George, Sarr. Who's passing on that team?
Tyus Jones still
I
there?
guess Tyus Jones. I don't remember if he's expired or not.
Yeah.
He is on the team. Or no, you're right. He's a free agent.
I want to say he's a free agent.
Yeah.
I'm looking at their.
And they got rid of Deni. They got rid of Deni. Yeah. Well, they've also got my guy, the defensive specialist from France. Koulibaly.
I do like him.
So he's there. They're just taking swings at talent, I guess, right? So that's what they're doing.
Marvin Bagley is on the Wizards, I'm pretty sure.
Rashawn Holmes.
Johnny Davis, who was one of the most inexplicable lottery picks of all time.
I actually thought he might be good. He's not. Newsflash.
He can't play on that team.
I know.
He's in real trouble. Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
Johnny scored a bunch of points at Wisconsin, and then he got to the NBA, and then right away
forgot how to play basketball.
It was like, nope, this ain't working.
Yeah.
What is the Wizards brain trust cooking right now?
They're cooking lottery odds for Cooper Flag, man. That's what they're cooking.
That's the only thing I can try to rationalize.
Well, Brooklyn might be trying to get into that mix too, right?
They saw that workout video Duke put out the other day about their practice, and we're like,
yeah,
let's load up on draft picks
well,
this
listen,
year.
the lottery odds now, you just have to be one of the bad teams. There's no great advantage that you get from being that top team.
That's true.
So as long as you're legit bad, you don't have to be historic bad or worse than the league bad. The Wizards might be that anyway. So they're right in the mix.
Right. So Shams gives us some details on the trade. You said, what are they doing? Knicks traded 24 to the Wizards for 26 and 51. So while we said the Wizards have a pick coming up, they swap 24 and 26 and they pick up 51.
That makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
That's one that's like, you like the guy, you trade a nothing end of the second round pick and say, go get him.
New
and
York now has 25 and 26 instead of 24 and 25. Isaiah Colley is still sitting there, man.
I would have taken him at least 5 picks ago if I were. Yeah, I don't know. I just see upside with him. You know, like I just think a guy that can get his own shot. I know he's a below the rim finisher, but he's like super physical. I don't know. And he competed on the defensive end at the end of the year. I value that type of player.
And one thing I agree with you, Kyle, on is he used to be the top guy in his class, in a pretty good class. There's something there.
I would say this too. His season was a strange one in that he came out to shoot just firing, right? Like that's why he got into that number 1 pick mix. Had probably one of the best first months of the season of anybody in NCAA basketball. Middle of the season went awry for him and the team. He also had an injury, so he missed time. Comes back, wasn't the same right away, but then that final stretch where their season was over, right? Like they didn't make the tournament, or I believe they finished either at or below 500, right? I think they might have been like 15 and 17, somewhere in that range. And there were a lot of NBA scouts who were like, this guy was still playing hard. Like he was still trying to show that he can be a better defender than his reputation was. His numbers all shot up. And so to me, if you're looking for like that, as much as like we bring up all these character notes for McCain, you look at a guy in a bad situation who's still like, I have something to prove and I'm going to play hard. That would entice me as an NBA team. And I do think if the Knicks take him, I think he makes some sense, right? Like they need some bench creation when Brunson sits down. Like
They were playing Alec Burks at the end of the
So they turned to him and Burks did okay. I think he would make some sense there. I don't know if they'll go there. Frankly, I don't know if they're keeping these.
Yeah.
Just because with how tight things are with the cap, maybe they move one and try to pick up some future stuff.
If they can get anything in the future, it would make sense, right? Because they just don't have a ton of stuff to trade moving forward.
Yeah.
I know they have they have protected picks from Detroit and Washington, I think, but it's unclear if either of those are going to convey.
Yeah.
Because those teams stink, as we just talked about the Wizards. We
To put it lightly.
Talked about Weave earlier too, right? We don't know if those are going to convey, and also they're protected too. Like the upside on those is not that high. I think it's kind of end of the lottery. So if you're the Knicks, maybe you try and package them together for a future first or something like that.
Yeah, so New York on the clock for 25 and 26. 24 is Washington, and they have targeted George from Miami for them. Minnesota 27, Denver 28, 29 for Utah, and 30 for the Boston Celtics. I won't say anything else. They're just the Boston Celtics.
We may be going a little early on this, but do you guys have a favorite pick or a favorite move up to this point? The only reason I bring it up is because Minnesota is coming up, and that Dillingham move was a really good one. Huge one. I like it for them, but there is definitely some risk in there for a team that's already up against it with what they're allowed to trade.
So are we just going to pick, or does it have to be a trade? Just anything that has happened so far?
Anything so far. And then we'll revisit this once all the picks are done. Snap reaction.
I'm going to go chalk here because they are the #1 seed in the West before they were knocked out, and go with the Oklahoma City Thunder taking a chance on Nikola Topic because of the fact that they can wait a little bit. Coming off the injury, already having a really good rotation, and looking at what they can do, taking a chance on a young guy like that again. Is he the replacement for Josh Giddey down the road as a similar type of skill set? Maybe a little bit better because it's different things, but I'll say that one for me. N12, Rich getting richer. Sam Presti just doing another good job of, after adding a nice player in a trade, and now you do this where you don't have to rely on him to play right now because you have other things already there.
Yeah.
So I'll say that I thought the Spurs, the value they got for number 8, and considering just like how far they have to go and how long their runway is with Wemby, getting basically an unprotected swap and an unprotected pick down the line. They don't even have to make that pick, man. They'll be able to trade those. It's only, and the swap, I believe, is top 1 protected. I don't know if we said that. Basically an unprotected swap. I just think like Minnesota, like Anthony Edwards could be out of there by then. And it could be something where they're looking to, in 3-4 years, trying to put a superstar around Wemby. They already have those Hawks picks from the DeJounte Murray trade. So I like that trade, and I'll go with pick. Devin Carter, I thought getting him at 13 was pretty good.
That's what I really like.
Yeah, obviously you have a good backcourt. The Kings re-signed Malik Monk to what I thought was a pretty fair number for him.
It was.
Like I didn't think it was
$100 million almost for the Orlando Magic.
Yeah, I didn't think that was exorbitant. Like they paid him the maximum they were allowed to. I believe they had early bird rights on him. But just sliding in a player when you have Monk, when you have De'Aaron Fox, just a guard who can defend, do the little things, make spot-up threes. I think he'll fit in nice in that mix.
What about you, Kyle?
So he's in the mix for me, too. I'll go somewhere else because of that. I think clinging to Portland was a real good fit.
Yes.
They have so many Matador guards that need help behind them.
He's going to be a starting center.
He will play above DeAndre Ayton sooner rather than later. He helps all the guys that are their potential franchise guys, right? Will be a good target on entry passes, but more importantly, all these guys that have defensive question marks, he'll be cleaning up a lot for them at the rim. So really like that. But that pick and the Devin Carter pick are my 2 favorites so far, because that 4-guard rotation between Fox, Monk, Carter, and Ellis, who I think Ellis really came on strong for them last year. That's a good group, and I think they complement each other well. You can basically mix and match with those guys. I really like that group in Sacramento. So good job by them, just sitting there, not panicking, not reaching for anybody. Like their MO historically has been, they'll trade up and make wild picks and do crazy shit. They sat tight, picked at 13, got a real good guy.
All right, let me ask you this one too. Surprised there's no more player movement tonight, current player movement in the NBA? Were you surprised that it's been so quiet?
Maybe not, just because I don't think the NBA valued this draft that highly, right? You know, like I'm sure teams tried, you know, like I'm sure the Sixers tried, you know, and I wonder if, where'd they pick it, 16? Was it the Jaden Springer range instead of the David Roddy range from a couple years ago? I don't know. Now the David Roddy range should have been in the same range as Jaden Springer, but yeah, I guess I am a little bit surprised. But I think that goes to show that teams just, I don't know, I'm not sure they value this specific draft as much to give up on current players.
What about you, Kyle? Surprised at all?
Yeah, now I will say this. The second round being tomorrow gives them more time to, or before the draft is over, have more talks, finalize some deals, tease this out. Now, it is tough to, once a guy is attached to the pick,
you got to take him.
It's a lot tougher to be like, hey, I'm not trading you the right to select somebody. I'm trading you this specific guy. And so if you're a team, and the Sixers are certainly one of them, who has eyes on some of these star targets and some of these other big names that are out there, if you're trying to move McCain, what was pick 16 is now McCain. If you're trying to move that for whether it's Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler, who we can talk about Jimmy at some point, by the way, whatever these guys are, whichever guy it is, it's tougher now if you don't have good intel that team wants McCain specifically.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Wow, man, this has been an interesting draft. We're not going anywhere, folks. We still have some time. We still have some picks on the clock. New York for 25 and 26. They selected at 24 for the Washington Wizards, swapping their picks. Kaishan George from Miami. Still trying to figure out what Washington is doing, but I guess it's just collecting some sort of young talent to have some people on their roster. Then Minnesota at 27. Denver at 28, 29 for the Utah Jazz, and 30 for the Boston Celtics. To jump ahead a little bit for the second round tomorrow, because you won't be with us, Rich, what are your thoughts on the second round? Is there anybody that you would want? Not anybody in particular, best player available, positionally, move it.
Damn it. I like this guy the Knicks just picked.
Who they take?
They took one of the French guys.
Oh, okay.
Another French guy.
They took a swing there.
Daddier. Love the name. Love the name. It's part of it.
What do you like about him besides the name?
He is a 6'8" off the dribble shooter. And that's enough for me.
I watched his highlights a little bit.
That's enough. If you're 6'8" and you can be a pull-up shooter.
It looks good.
How raw is he in every other aspect for him to be selected this low then?
It looks good.
So he can't defend.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's turnover prone,
but
he doesn't
shooting,
rebound.
Man.
But man, does that jumper look pretty when he's pulling up to shoot.
It does.
And look, so I would say he's more of like a top of the second half or a second round guy for me. He had some interest for me there. Like if he had gotten to 41, I'm cool taking a flyer on that type of guy.
Yep.
Just because big shot maker, think that's good. Again, not as good as McCain on this front, but I think he's got good relocation instincts from what I've seen, mostly from what I've heard.
Sure.
Talking to people who watch a lot more of European basketball
European
than I do.
hoops.
Yeah.
We got to get together and watch some European hoops one day. Just us.
I told you, like, listen.
European hoops is terrible.
I'm leaning on other people for these ones. I'm just saying to you.
All they talk about, too, is, oh, man, everybody's so skilled over there. No. NBA game is way more skilled.
Buddy, I watched
they beat
Timothée
the
Luwawu-Cabarrot come from European leagues and stink it the hell up.
Come on. Yeah. It's really physical. I mean, they are grown men beating the hell out of you. Like, I will give them that, but it's not. I don't think it's great to watch, but whatever. That's my taste. I will name one guy, Kevin McCullough from Kansas.
Round two?
Yeah, I just think he's a good swing as somebody who could stick in a rotation at the end of it. You know, played on a really good team at Kansas, rebounding.
Put him with the blue coats, let him get some work in.
Yeah, something like that. But maybe not for the Sixers. But he is. Just looking at the names that are here, he is somebody who stands out to me.
And also because Kyle and I will be back with Derek tomorrow at 4 p.m. for the second round. Bronny James, what are your thoughts on that? Because so far he's not drafted. Some thought, hey, maybe he might sneak in the first round. We would read things that said, oh no, he's going in the first round.
I won't say who. We talked to somebody who was convinced it was a lock. Bronny in the first round. Absolute lock.
That is true. That is true.
I was just talking with some guys over there. They were also convinced. I was like, second round for him. The Lakers are going to take him with, what is it? 55. I think the 55th pick 55, or whatever. Yeah. I was like, second round. They were like, first round. Well, they took Dalton Connect instead. I find the whole Bronny James thing, I'm sad about it, man. I feel bad for that kid. Like, for somebody who,
by all accounts, a great kid.
Yeah, and I think lost in the coverage about him is that he is like a real high major Division I basketball player. Like he didn't get that because of his name. Now, did he stink to join up in his first year? Yeah, but part of the reason was he had a freaking heart attack in the summer.
Life-altering health issue.
Yep.
And I think if his name was not Bronny James and his father did not have the dream of playing with him at the same time, he would go back to school. Hell, he'd go transfer somewhere. He'd make a ton of maybe the most NIL money ever, and he'd develop and work on his game. And I think there is a chance he is a little bit on the smaller side, unfortunately. Like, I wish for kind of his 3-and-D type skill set, you do wish he was a couple inches taller. That's a little more
Bryce's height.
Yeah. Bryce, the other one, is a little bit taller, for sure. But Bronny's like a great athlete. I like the way he shoots the ball. You just wish he would go back to school for another year. But unfortunately, he's caught up in all of this, and now people are telling him he stinks all the time, and it's ridiculous. So I feel bad for him because I feel like a lot of the conversation about him, it's not even about him anymore. It's just people trying to dunk on LeBron, and his son has been thrown into it. So I'm rooting for him.
If he wasn't his dad's son, he probably would have gone back to school, to your point, if not transferred. And it is unfortunate. And Kyle, when we look at it, we're talking about this guy. You're also adding to what Rich is saying, the fact that Rich Paul is saying we're not accepting a two-way deal. Things like that, which is putting him in a really, really tough spot. Yeah. The kid, sure, he'll go at 55 to the Lakers because. But if there were anyone else that took him or didn't take him, the guy is now an undrafted free agent trying to link on with the team for Summer League to just latch on and play basketball.
Yeah, I'd say I wouldn't say I'm rooting for him because, like, transparently, if basketball doesn't work out for him,
He's fine.
He's going to be okay relative to the average.
He's even already made some
NBA
good
player,
NIL money.
Like, sure.
Yeah.
Now, I agree with you on a human level. I sympathize for what he's going through because it has turned into, he's being treated as like this ultra nepotism case when, to your point, like, he was a legitimate D1 basketball player. There are not tons of people who can do that. There are a lot of guys like that, but not a lot of guys who play at those high major type programs. Like, he was a very, very good glue guy type player. Probably not that type of player in the NBA. In a normal situation, he'd be a 3 or 4 year college guy. You'd see what happens over the ups and downs. And frankly, we'd be talking about him as this, like, what a comeback story, right? Like, was thought like maybe he's never able to play basketball again. Yes. He comes back, he plays, and now he's in the mix to potentially be drafted, probably for the wrong reason. So I wish for his sake he would have stayed at USC or transferred somewhere, given himself the time to just like become his own person rather than get swept up in all the.
And that was the talk before declaring. That was the talk that he was transferring somewhere. Ohio State was being talked about. A few other schools were being discussed. And then all of a sudden, Rich, he's declaring for the NBA draft.
It's just a bummer that people just say he's a bad basketball player. No, he's not a bad basketball player. Like, he is a high major Division I basketball player. We don't know if he's an NBA guy yet. What he showed last year was not NBA quality, NBA prospect quality. That's okay. Like, a lot of these upperclassmen, like, was Dalton Connect a no-brainer NBA player at 18, 19 years old? No, right? Sometimes it takes a little while, and I think it's a bummer for him in that respect. But I do want to emphasize what Kyle said. Like, he'll be fine regardless. Yeah. So, like,
he'll hang in there.
Yeah. It'll be okay.
Yeah. So, Lakers are in at 55.
But no, they will absolutely take him at 51. I do want to see, it was funny because they show all of the draft war rooms after the picks, and, like, it's all these old guys high-fiving each other, and wow, what an amazing job we did. I want to see the Lakers room after the Bronny James pick.
Look at that guy.
Hey, Bo.
Look at that guy, Bo Wolf.
Hey, look at him.
Bo Wolf stepping in here. as we do the show, coming to hang out.
Walking
up the stairs behind us.
Stair walking.
There he is.
Late in the first round. That's allowed. That's allowed.
I'm going to steal a Bo Wolf-ism because Zach Berman, after the Eagles pick, drove to the facility afterwards. He called him Leadfoot Berman. I wonder if Leadfoot Bodner... He's driving over the...
I'm not going to out what Bodner drives, but he's got a car that can go if he needs to.
He probably brought that one.
He's driving over the Ben Franklin at Jaleel Okafor speeds right now.
101, baby. 101. 101. That's funny. But yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about tomorrow with the second round, 4 p.m. And you'll be back with us on Sunday, just to let everybody know.
Day.
We will have a big day of a free agency show. Beginning at 5 on Sunday, an hour early. I think at least I think that's what the graphic said when we got everything. If it's not 5, we're starting at 6. And we will be with you for a couple of hours on Sunday as free agency gets underway at 6 p.m. Quiet here now. All the fireworks were really yesterday. Deni Avdija today extending for the Knicks, extending OG Anunoby. He's not going to be available. So a lot to get into. Now, when you look at it, because if we're starting at 6 on Sunday and before things get started, what are your thoughts now as they approach the offseason after tonight, if they keep McCain?
If they keep McCain, I think the hope is that Paul George changes his mind, right? And he says, I will sign for the full max, and that's what the deal is. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case, right? All the tea leaf reading, right? All these, I'll opt into my contract and maybe get traded somewhere else. I know the Knicks are not a viable option for that anymore, but maybe Golden State, whatever it is, just seems like doesn't want to play in Philly. It's a shame. I think it's easily the best situation for him.
Yeah.
Maybe not easily, but in terms of like a team that can just compete with him now and not have to trade anything for him, it's if he opts in, I feel like for the Clippers to accept that deal, the team that receives Paul George is going to have to give real stuff. Sixers don't have to do that. So that's obviously what the hope is. Outside of that, you guys floated the Ingram option. Although when you guys floated it yesterday, it involved trading this pick. I actually
possible?
I thought that idea was a good one. I just, it has not happened as of now. I am not as big of an Ingram guy, but I guess you can talk me into it a little bit.
I don't think any of us are big Ingram guys. It's more, it feels like a marriage of convenience rather than you're smitten with the man himself, right? He's on an expiring. You get this year. You say, what does it look like? It's like a can you change him type relationship, right? And you say, Brandon, I've seen you shoot 6 threes a game in the past. Why can't you be that guy all the time?
Yeah.
Can you play off a Joel Embiid? Yeah. So the cost presumably will be lower than Mikal Bridges, certainly than Markkanen if he were even theoretically available. But I don't know, man.
You have to trust your player development / your coaching that you can get him to play the way you want.
Yeah.
But look, we have a long track record that he is not.
Thunder traded 5 second-round picks to the Knicks for that pick 26.
I like that for the Knicks. They'll be able to cobble those together, for some.
You can get something at the deadline for that.
You can get Buddy Hield to miss a bunch of threes at the deadline and still have a couple.
I think Sadiq Bey went for exactly 5 second-round picks. Not this past deadline, but the one before that. So that's kind of if you want to look at, okay, what's the type of player or level of player New York could potentially swing for, maybe that kind of guy.
And that's for Dylan Jones going to the Thunder. Weaver State guard, 6'5". He has a weird game.
The first Weaver State guy since Dame, right?
Since Dame? I think there was one more.
I feel like there was another one, but I don't remember who it was.
He was more of
not a pro factory, but
no, not at all, not at all. But he has a weird game. But good for him. First round pick, first round money.
I'll be honest, I didn't watch a second of Weaver State this year. So if anybody is a Dylan Jones expert, I will point you to them. I see that he is 65th on Sam Vecini's big board. So I'm certainly not going to cast aspersions at Sam Presti, who has shown he knows more about drafting and evaluating than most people who have ever drafted and evaluated basketball players.
And look, he's made enough moves where he's due a couple whiffs. It's not even gonna. Those seconds, those seconds were burning a hole in his pocket anyway. So back to Ingram though. Yeah, I wouldn't love the fit, but the two things that he does bring you is that he's 27 years old, and his contract is less. That you can actually get better players to surround Embiid, Maxey, and Ingram after that. So you can talk yourself into that. I mean, but like, look, when Brandon Ingram, once Paul George probably says no, when he seems like the best option, I think I'd take a step back and think like, man, this whole cap space plan, like, there's just like not a lot of great options available here. Like maybe they weren't. Maybe they weren't projecting that Siakam would get traded, OG would get traded, and kind of all these options would be off the board. McHale would get traded for 1 million picks, Markkanen in Utah or whatever. But I just step back and think like, when Ingram is the best you can do, it's just, I don't know, it's a tough place to start from. That's all.
Yeah, I wish I felt better about what's on the board out there for them. It really feels like it's going to require an out of nowhere, oh my God, that guy was available type of trade, because otherwise it's just various levels of talking yourself into it. Now, let's say I don't think we've really discussed the Jimmy Butler reporting I know I wrote last week and we talked about the idea that I didn't think he was going anywhere, that I thought he was staying in Miami. Brian Windhorst, among some other reporters today, I believe Shams as well, effectively said that he's not signing an extension anywhere this year, period. Now, that just seems like for now, gonna play it cool, play in Miami, whatever. But he would have been a marriage of convenience too, right? Like, you don't want to give Jimmy a max extension.
Horrifying.
And on top of that, you don't want to pay first-round picks for the privilege of paying him that max money.
Yep.
He is inspiring in that we've seen it in the playoffs for him, right? He is a guy, gut check type of performer in fourth quarters, in series against teams that are on paper better than they are, has risen to the moment, and he had some great playoff moments here. So people will be excited from that perspective. But that looks like that's out too, and that was among the best options that they had.
Yeah.
Which is all that is to say, things are looking dark right now.
The starting point is not great.
Yeah.
And I think when I look back at Daryl Morey last year, like, he went on the radio and was like, this is going to be worth it. And I understand he was in a tough spot with Harden. I frankly agreed with not paying Harden for 4 years. So, like, this is not even to rip him to shreds completely, but he told us it was going to be worth it. And right now, I look at the starting point and the realistic options available, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure it was worth it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Very curious in the James Harden ending, too, because, hey, for him, maybe not the greatest decision potentially, depending on what happens with the Clippers, staying there, not staying there. But
I feel like he'll get like a 3-year deal thing.
Yeah, but it wasn't what he wanted.
390?
Yeah, 390 I was thinking.
But it wasn't what he wanted, right?
No.
Certainly not. No.
Yeah. So for all of that, make all that noise, and then it's still not get, even the next season, off season, still not get. Just to catch everybody up here on the draft board, Dylan Jones, Kyle talked about him going to Oklahoma City Thunder from the New York Knicks. That Washington taking him for the Knicks, he will be sent to OKC. Minnesota Timberwolves going with one of the guys we talked about, Kyle, Terrence Shannon Jr. from Illinois. He gets a first-round spot here after everything that of course, we didn't really talk about, all the off-the-court things, but he's a talent, and he goes to a good situation here in Minnesota if that's where he stays.
Yeah, so what you would say you like about him is that he was great as a lead guy the last couple years, especially last season when he was on the floor at Illinois. Good straight line attacker, can get to the rim, good finisher. He's, I'd say good, not great finisher. I think he shot in like the low 60s there, and that's not great. But when most of those shots are self-created, that plays into it. He shot a similar percentage around the rim as Tristan da Silva, and Tristan da Silva is basically creating none of his own offense. It's a lot of like spoon-fed, on cuts, on dump-ins, whatever. So Shannon is a good creator. The thing that you're worried about is like, is this guy really going to shoot, or did he just adjust to the college line over? I think he played 5 years, right? Like this was a graduate season for him, so he's an old prospect. So do you believe in him as a shooter? And early in his career at, was it Texas Tech he played at, right?
Yes.
He was a much more well-regarded as a defensive guy, right? And that's kind of how he came up. Once he became this featured guy who can get to the free throw line, carrying a big offensive workload, his defensive fight waned a lot. And so that would be the concern I have. As, by the way, Ryan Dunn, 28 to Phoenix. I know you talked to me off air, I think, about him a lot. So I guess, what had you heard, or what do you like about him? I think he makes a lot of sense in Phoenix.
Yeah, so it's really just the defensive profile, and wherever it was, whether it was New York, Washington, Minnesota, it was that defensive profile. Just being able to play big body, strong, athletic, can move, and can play that wing position where we know in today's league, that's where you live. That's where there's so much talent with all of these players that we talk about. And you can begin with the Boston Celtics and the fact that you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But now with him out west with Phoenix, that just gives them another defensive player. Look, they went out there and they traded, and they went to New York, went to Brooklyn, and they traded for a defensive guy who can shoot. Just more, but they just needed more wings and they needed more defense. And so for them to add Ryan Dunn here with the athleticism that he had, the length, the defensive instincts that he plays with, that's a good spot. They also need guys that don't need the basketball. And he's a guy that has good size, can play on the floor with those other scorers, and doesn't require him to have the basketball. Now, can he shoot the basketball, as we talked about earlier? Not so much.
No.
But the guy can defend. And if he can again just get on the floor because of that, and which is why they're picking him here late in the first round, I think he might be okay. I think he might be all right. He's not as reluctant as we talked about Matisse Thybulle to shoot the basketball, and he can put the ball on the floor a little bit better. Has more of an offensive side than what Matisse Thybulle showed us here in Philadelphia.
And look, if you're looking for a situation where you can protect the non-shooter, you're playing with Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, right? Like those guys are going to garner a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Counterpoint to that, as we've seen on Sixers teams, they will absolutely ignore you to sell out against those other guys. And so there's going to be a balance there. I like him, though, as a guy who he can probably play right away. I think he is a scheme-proof, matchup-proof type of defender. I believe he will defend. It just all comes down to he could well outplay the value of pick 28 if he can ever shoot the ball.
And again, he's not afraid to shoot it. He has a little more by putting the basketball on the floor and finishing. And we talk about hard work and all of that stuff. The guy competes, and he's a hard worker. And then when you look, Grayson Allen, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant will play defense, so we're not talking about him. Royce O'Neal, who again traded from Brooklyn, will play defense and can shoot. Eric Gordon, these are players that they had last year that you had to worry about that were those one-dimensional type of guys that just simply couldn't defend.
Yeah.
And we know the top guys that can score, and Booker and Beal. When Booker and the Phoenix Suns were making that run, he was digging in defensively, but he does select when he wants to play defense. You have a guy like this out there with them, and I think it makes their lives a lot easier. And so that's why I like Ryan Dunn a little bit there.
Another fit that I like, taken right after Ryan Dunn, Isaiah Collier.
Man, he waited. Wow, Utah.
Quite a fall compared to November 30th. He was #1 on the ESPN NBA mock draft board.
He probably did not think he'd be making $1 million in Salt Lake City at that point, but it's probably a little more than $1 million. I don't know what the draft
It is about finding that right fit for you.
Yeah.
And finding that right fit for him, he's going to a good situation with the coach.
They'll let him play.
Hardy, yeah.
I like Hardy as a coach a lot.
So he's there developing with that coaching staff. He's now selected by a GM that a lot of people like his picks, and there are others that he missed on, but Danny Ainge is a good GM. So they selected him here. They said we're going to take a chance on the guy that Kyle said in November, beginning of college basketball season, he was the #1 pick. So the talent is there, and now he has a chip on his shoulder for the stuff at USC, as you talked about, and then now dropping to the back end of the first round, the second to last pick in the first round. But he's got a good coaching staff. He's got some good players around him, some talent there with, as we talk about, Markkanen, and we'll see what happens with Clarkson and some of those other players. But good spot for him.
Yeah, look.
Hey, if he was going to Boston, we'd be like, oh man,
the rich get richer type of deal.
Right.
Now listen, look, he's at 29 for a reason. He had some real issues shooting the ball, and just as importantly on the defensive end. I think there are real off-ball awareness issues, over-pursuit defensively, where he's just running by people, not good at navigating screens, et cetera, et cetera. But I think for a team at the very back of the first round, for a team that is just looking for star equity, this guy is one of the few guys in the draft that I think can be a live ball playmaker that can get downhill, has great strength, despite he's only like 6'2.5", right?
Yes.
If he was 6'5", which is what he was measured at prior to this year, or prior to the combine,
the reverse of what we talked about earlier.
He's not falling to 29, but again, just like we said with McCain, you are what you are. You deal with what you got. So
yeah,
I like him as an attacker. I think he's great at hitting first, hitting a spin move, hitting a euro, whatever it is, playing through contact and get to the free throw line. I just wish I bought the shot more because the free throw numbers are ugly. The outside numbers are okay. But I think I see so many problems that stem from he doesn't want to shoot threes because he's not as confident in it. And that turnover problem that he has, he dribbles himself into more trouble instead of just saying, I'm going to take that open three. And that's the big concern for me.
How much do you put into a coaching staff in a situation like that?
Big time. And I, as I said earlier, I thought USC was kind of a mess most of last season. And frankly, like if you're looking at somebody to play with Markkanen playing with a real downhill guy who can suck defenders in and force people to meet him at the rim, anybody who can generate more open shots for him, he's going to be eating good there. So you're going to be playing through Markkanen a lot, but allowing him to just be, hey, you're a spot-up catch-and-shoot guy more often, I'm sure he'll appreciate that.
Yeah, Colin Sexton is similar type, but of course a guy worthy of being a top 8 pick in his draft in 2018, going to the Cleveland Cavaliers at that time, now with the Utah Jazz. One more pick to go before the end of the first round. Second round will be tomorrow, 4 p.m. start time for us here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. That will be day 2 of our PHLY Sixers live draft show. We will not be here at the Garage Fishtown, but we will be back in the studio. So we'll have some fun there. Boston Celtics on the clock for the 30th and final selection of the first round. Will they take Bronny James, Rich, at pick number 30?
I saw it on Twitter. They did not take Bronny James. So.
Spoiler, not Bronny.
Not Bronny. You saw it on Twitter. Who is it?
It is Baylor Shireman from Creighton.
Baylor. I mean Creighton.
From Creighton, yeah.
I like him.
Skinny, lefty, good shooter.
Yeah, I like him. Of course.
I think he has some athletic concerns. I would say is fair, but
put him in the Sam Hauser type category, right?
Another Sam Hauser.
No, Sam Hauser is a real success story, man.
Absolutely.
Like Sam Hauser, some of the defense he played in the NBA Finals was, I think it's not sustainable, but the fact that they got it out of him is crazy. Like,
I do think I've said on the show recently, I think he's probably a little bit better defensively than people think. Like. As like a regular season, game-to-game type of guy, he definitely played over his head. Like, he was strapping Kyrie and Luka at times in the finals.
Like,
and
he was putting some highlight on real defensive tape on. Yeah, it was.
But he's a guy who competes. He's got decent size. So.
And there's real value in the regular season if you can get that guy playable, at least in those type of games. Like, just as an innings eater and somebody who can space the floor, you know?
A guy that can shoot.
We'll see if this guy can do it.
Yeah, guy that can shoot. Kyle, what are your takeaways from day 1 First of all, what are your takeaways of day one? Only round one.
Are we talking for the league or the Sixers?
The league itself of round one, push it to day two. Of course, they do it for television purposes, and they move it up to 4 p.m. because of the old guys tomorrow night. But your thoughts on the new format?
I mean, I could honestly do without it. I think, given that we've been doing this show for almost 3.5 hours and it's one round, that seems to me like they're really dragging it out. It does nothing for me to do it on a second night.
Normally, when we start at 7:30, 7 o'clock, because of both rounds.
It just doesn't have the same importance that day two of the NFL.
No.
Like day two of the NFL, you're drafting like the core of your team.
Yes.
You know.
Also, most of the people are going to be like, who the hell is this guy?
Right.
I don't know who this guy is. He played for like Megalex or wherever.
Day two is when
Santa Barbara or wherever the hell.
Exactly. Sam Hinkie is wheeling and dealing on day two.
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't think it translates in the way that. But like, look, it's a television show. They're trying to drag it out. They definitely dragged out this broadcast. Like if this were a normal night, like we'd be midway through the second round right now.
Yeah, without question. So an interesting thing there, and your other takeaways.
Well, so I was going to say, I asked you guys for favorite pick, least favorite pick, or move.
Least
round
favorite
one.
pick. I'll go with
that Khalil Ware pick by Miami is not my favorite pick.
Devon likes him, so he won't be with us.
I like
on that
Khalil
one.
Ware, yeah. I do like Khalil. I'll go with
I mean, I think the first pick seems like a bad pick.
That's probably the
I would
best candidate.
I would rather have the three guys picked after him, just from what I've seen, than the first guy.
like the player, like the idea of everything you guys say when we got to pick 5 and the surprise of it, but it's Detroit. And you talk about a player like that going to the Pistons, and even though Weaver is not there, the ownership is still there.
The spirit of Weave lives on.
Right, that's thinking,
The
that
ghost
funk
of
is
GM
still there,
past.
man. So all of that stuff still being there, we don't know who the coach is.
No.
So we don't know who the coaching staff is to be developing this player. So I kind of look at that, and maybe you go with something a little more sure at that spot to go with them. So I'll go with that one. Not because of the player, because of the organization.
Yeah, it might be Borrego. I think he's interviewing with them.
I like Borrego. I do.
The thing is, I like Ron Holland. Like, that's somebody, if the Sixers would have taken him, I would have been really jazzed about. But that was certainly the most shocking pick for him to go with 5.
Yeah.
I think I saw on Twitter, he gave an interview afterwards. He was like, I had no idea I would go this high. Like, he was, I think, more surprised than anybody. So,
yeah.
All right, I'll
That
throw
was
another
shocking.
one at you. Edie at 9 to Memphis. I did not like at all. Again, it's not about the player. It's more about
Situation.
I don't like that situation for him at all. I don't like the fit with what are you doing in the him and Jaren Jackson lineups? What are you doing when it's him and Ja on a unit together? Like I don't know, man.
They do have a good coach, so how does he figure that out?
see, I would have liked Edie, because I don't think Edie's going to be a bust. Like, I think he's going to be an NBA player. But I would have liked it more if you drafted him for a backup role. Like,
Yes.
is he going to start for them? Is that what the
Take him
goal
top
is?
10, I would assume so.
Well,
You at least want him to. That's the goal.
and do you want him to start right away, just considering he is an older player as well? I mean, for a team with legitimate aspirations, it's I'm with you. I would have liked him more in a backup role.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at something here on our PHLY_Sixers Twitter account, where Chris has put up one of the quotes from Jared McCain on being drafted by the 76ers. There are no words to describe it. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I have no words. I'm going to do anything I can to bring home a championship.
I will say, just like scouring Twitter and kind of national people, there are a lot of people who are higher on that pick than we are. Does that mean anything? No, like Jared McCain's going to have to prove it, and we'll see what happens. And we can only go by what we know, at this point. But I do want to point out that there are a lot of people who seem to really like him. Now, I wonder if that's people who interviewed him and just kind of fell in love with the person, which is understandable. It's not everything, though.
You don't win the draft on draft day. It's always important to Everyone, and look, people fall into the trap with the Eagles and the NFL specifically. It's like, oh, Howie took the guy I know. The Eagles won the draft, and not necessarily always the case. So certainly true here as well. McCain's got the intangibles we talked about, the shooting we talked about. You just got to hope you can find the right spot for him in the rotation.
And as you said, the draft is not won on draft night. You still have to put a roster together to where he fits in his spot, his role, and maybe that'll have some more clarity once they're done of what, where, and how he fits with this basketball team should he stay with the Philadelphia 76ers.
Is it time to get out of here, fellas?
It's time to get out of here. There's a lot of people
3.5 hours later
for a roll call, so we're just going to pass on that one for a roll call.
Everyone who was in the chat, but certainly everyone who was here, I saw a lot of you, got to shake hands with a bunch of you.
Winona.
Between Rick, Winona, Eugene. I know Jay the Jungle was here. I don't know if he is here. I don't think I got to see him, talk to Dave, talk to Rich, talk to a bunch of different people prior to the show. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming out. I'm happy that some of our regular people got some good prizes. Rick walked with the Julius Erving basketball. I don't know who got the tickets, but really cool to see everybody tonight.
And shout out to everybody in the chat watching along who stayed with us through that raffle round.
My God.
Because that was something.
What, I had to do a crappy Ric Flair impression in the middle of the show because I didn't know what else to do.
Devon was right next to me. I was like, I didn't hear what you said.
And the bottom line is, we'll be back tomorrow.
I mean, look, man, doing shows in the past and you just have so much noise, you just know to just keep going.
Yeah.
So I just keep going.
That's why I wear lizard shoes and a Rolex watch and a limousine around the block.
Oh, man, this is fun. But we do have a lot of other people to thank, and we start with our sponsors. Coors Light, who sponsored us, of course, with the Coors Light Pounders and the Coors
Banquet, baby.
$5 all night long here, and the place is still going. So if you're like, you know what, I'm around the corner, I just want to go in there and take in the atmosphere.
You're in Fishtown.
You still get that here at Garage North in Fishtown. So we do thank Garage North for hosting us here tonight.
Thank you to Garage. The nice, look, that great cooler in the background.
Yes.
What a shot. What framing we have here for the show.
Yeah. We were looking at it and we were like, this is interesting. Once we did it and I saw it, not bad. Not a bad idea.
Looking good.
Not a bad idea. So we thank Coors Light. We thank Hofmann Orthopedics, who is our official NBA draft sponsor. They are our sponsor throughout the entire NBA draft. And as we head to free agency, we'll have Summer League coming up next month also. So that's going to be very fun. Maybe we'll see Jared McCain. Maybe we won't, but we'll see. Jared McCain, we'll see with Summer League. But we thank all of our people for the sponsoring us with Coors Light and Hofmann Orthopedics. Garage North here in Fishtown for hosting us. We thank Brianna for handling everything,
Super producer Bree,
including the noise and making sure our sounding was correct.
Thank you also to Julia for helping with production. Thank you to Chris on social media.
Thank
and all
you
our
to
PHLY.
Renee for giving away the prizes from PHLY.
Great turnout today
Phillies
from the
and
crew.
Union.
All our people from PHLY showing up for us as well. Great to see them here.
And Rich, thank you, man. Thanks for coming in and hanging out.
Man.
It's always fun being with you.
Absolutely.
We'll be with you on Sunday for the NBA Free Agent Frenzy.
Let's hope it's a little more.
Let's hope it's an actual frenzy, not tonight's type of
Well,
frenzy.
there are a lot of free agents.
There are free agents. There are ones that Sixers fans want, and there are ones that they don't want. And
thank you to
we got to change the juju up.
everybody out
I don't
there
know how.
for our first PHLY Sixers NBA draft show. This was fun. Kyle, it's always great to be with you. Great to be with Derek and Rich, of course. So it's always fun to do this.
And remember, everybody, we don't have the bell, but on the way out, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon so you get notifications each and every time we go live. And please hit that thumbs up so we get some more love from the algorithm. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, everybody. Good night. Good luck. We'll see you tomorrow.
We'll see you then.